Aita for calling an ambulance, which got my coworker fired. This got removed from Aita, so posting here. I, 27F, was at a group work training for my job this past weekend. The company put a bunch of us up in a hotel and had us attend a day-long presentation about our goals for the next quarter. For context, we're in sales, it's highly competitive, and the group consisted of mostly older employees with me being the youngest. After a full day of meetings, a few of us decided to get dinner at a restaurant down the street from our hotel. We carpooled, and when we arrived, one of the older ladies, Deborah, 50s, was already there, standing at the bar. We invited her to join us for food, but she declined, and we moved on with our night. I had 2 beers with dinner, so I'm not judging, but as we finished our meal, it became clear that Deborah was plastered. She was stumbling even though the ground was level and slurring pretty badly. As we left, Deborah came outside with us and reached for her keys. I immediately stopped her and said I'd drive her back to our hotel. She agreed, but as she went to grab the passenger door handle, she missed and fell straight back onto the pavement, hitting the back of her head. I don't mean to be gross, but it sounded like someone dropped a carton of eggs. I checked, and not only was she passed out, but she was bleeding from her head. Everyone panicked, and I grabbed my phone to call 911. One of the younger guys stopped me and said, "Help me get her in the car. We'll get her room key out of her purse and just put her in bed." I was bewildered and said, "But she has a head injury. She's bleeding. What if she cracked her skull?" "I'm no doctor, but if you go to sleep with a head injury, don't you not wake up?" I'm pretty sure I learned that in school, and some of the other employees agreed with me, so I called the ambulance. Paramedics took Deborah to the hospital, and she survived, though she was in really bad shape when I checked up on her the next day. Here's where I may be the asshole. Our managers found out that Deborah was hospitalized for overdrinking while technically at a work function, and they fired her on the spot. Everyone also found out that I was the one who insisted on calling an ambulance. The older employees are all saying I did the right thing and that she could have died, but the younger ones are calling me a snake and saying I got her fired on purpose because she was competition. Aita. Stories number 2. My 19F dad, 40s has an obsession with buying exotic or illegal animal meat and is why my family fell apart. So my dad has always been a kind of strange guy, but I never really noticed. I was used to it, and that's just who he is. He isn't mean but doesn't talk much, very busy with work, doesn't seem to be interested in anyone's life, that kind of thing. When I was a kid, gradually our relatives stopped visiting. My dad wasn't in contact with his family, but my mom's used to be around a lot. Then they stopped. I remember hearing my mom fighting with her parents a couple times. I gathered they didn't like my dad. I haven't seen my cousins in years. We used to be close as kids. I was never one for social media, but recently reactivated my Facebook and decided to look up some of my relatives on a whim. I messaged my cousin I was closest to, 18F, also my aunt, her mom, 40s. My cousin didn't seem to know why we hadn't seen each other, but my aunt said I should ask my mom. It wasn't the sort of thing I should hear from her, my aunt. Mind you, I'd asked my mom before a few times, she always said they were too busy to visit. I was really confused and we ended up having a long conversation yesterday. I had to insist on a real answer. Now I am horrified at what I found out. Her family is freaked out by my dad because a few years ago when they came for dinner, this was a bunch of people, not just my aunt and cousin, they found out what he'd said was beef was actually kangaroo meat. My mom had specifically gone out of her way to make the meal herself because she knew my dad had done this before, so she banned him from cooking, but he secretly swapped the meats during some point she wasn't in the kitchen. She admitted to her family he was constantly doing this to us. Yeah, now I know I've eaten a ton of gross shit he'd said was beef or chicken. And whenever I didn't like something, it's probably because it wasn't what he said. She told me that he's been obsessed with trying exotic meats for years. Now looking back, I remember times I saw weird unlabeled meat packages in the basement freezer, I just never thought to inspect it. She said he has spent thousands and thousands of dollars in getting them. They are rare and cost a lot, plus travel costs, and paying off his contacts who pass information about where he can find whatever he's looking for. It's driven my parents to the verge of financial ruin multiple times. My mom also said they've nearly divorced a few times. I used to hear them fighting sometimes as a kid, now I guess I know why. You're probably thinking he just has adventurous tastes and this can't be that bad, so I'll give the full picture of everything she told me. Some of the things he's had are weird to standard Americans, but I realize might not be that weird other places, the kangaroo, and horse for example, wolf, camel, shark fin soup. Some is questionable, I guess, such as something called ortolan bunting, look it up, and seafood eaten while still alive. Then some of it is straight up illegal, like she said he once killed and ate a bald eagle, he hunts normal game which I knew but also protected species. He's obtained bushmeat, meat from African wildlife that's illegally imported here. This includes stuff like rats, various monkeys, chimpanzee, apes and gorillas, pangolin, porcupine, civets, and giraffe. From what my mom knows, he bought these from some markets in NYC that sold it in immigrant communities. It became even worse with other exotic animals. He has gone so far as to travel to other countries specifically to get meat from particular animals. These have included zebra, cheetah, elephant, hippo, Bengal tiger, endangered rhino, in places in Southeast Asia and Africa. He went somewhere in the Caribbean to hunt and eat dolphin, Brazil for anaconda. My mom says that a trip he's going on next month to China is specifically to try to find a way of eating Chinese salamander and panda meat. These are both very endangered species. It's seriously illegal there to kill pandas. That's not something Chinese people actually eat, but he's determined to do it. And he's been like that about some of the other ones I mentioned that are also rare or under protected status, like some types of gorillas and orangutans. Who hears of an endangered animal and thinks, aha, I want to eat that. WTF. Oh, and he also wants to go to the Antarctic to hunt penguin and whatever else is there before the ice melts. He's already been to the Arctic and eaten stuff there apparently. My mom has to snoop on his laptop to keep an eye on what he's doing since he stopped talking about it. He knows she doesn't approve, but she can't do anything. They just pretend it's not happening, and she reads his emails with contacts whenever he mentions needing to go on a trip for work. She says it sounds like these people are involved in foreign animal trade networks. He's very secretive. She has to deliberately wait for a minute he's in the bathroom with computer logged in. She has been terrified for years that any day he's going to get arrested. They, my mom and younger siblings, rely on my dad's salary. My mom is disabled with a chronic illness and cannot work, so would only have disability checks to get by on. There's more she didn't even tell me because it wasn't appropriate and refused when I said I could handle it. So I can only imagine what else he's done. I don't know what to do. My family is on the brink of falling apart and I never knew. I will never look at my dad the same again. This is really disgusting to me. My mom can't divorce him because they rely on him. She won't talk to her family about it because they just tell her to divorce. I know she's very anxious, but I feel like I've almost lost respect for her because she knew the whole time and never at least warned me. I'm also pretty sure she has lied to me saying we never had a cat when I was little, except I remember it and don't remember what happened to it, which now I'm sick thinking maybe my dad did something. My mom insisted I was thinking of someone else's cat, but there is a photo of me as a little girl with that cat on my bed. I'm in college on the other side of the country and only home for a few more days. My mom made me promise to never say a word to my dad, he'd kill me. This is all so fucked up to me. I'm really worried about them and what they'll do if he's caught. Also, WTF is wrong with him? What can I do? Should I confront him or try to convince my mom to leave? Get her family involved. It's like disarming a bomb. I don't want to do anything that would just blow everything up, but I cannot imagine him just getting to continue doing whatever he wants. TLDR, my dad has secretly been pursuing chances to eat meat from exotic/endangered animal species whenever he can. He's totally out of control to the point of breaking the law to get it. Throughout my childhood he snuck it into food he made us pretending it was something normal like beef, pork or chicken. My mom is too scared to leave him or do anything. Has anyone ever heard of something like this? What are my options? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Your dad seems mentally ill. Not because of the weird meat, but because of the fucked up behavior around it. There are people who basically collect exotic meats or other foods by eating them, the same way others collect countries by visiting them. It can be an expensive pursuit, but he's pursuing it more like an addiction than a hobby, to the point of self-destruction. And the part where he tries to make the family complicit by sneaking rat meat into your burgers, that's a straight-up fetish. I'm gonna guess getting him into psychotherapy is probably a no-go, but he needs it. Reply. That's a good point that it could just be a thing about novel experiences. But the illegal parts is what gets to me. It's not illegal to travel or try a bunch of foods in restaurants. He's eating and sometimes killing species he's not supposed to, and buying some of the meat on a black market or bringing it in himself. That part is really crazy to me, and yeah, I'm seriously sickened by the thought of what I might have eaten because of him. I want to help my mom, but I also hate that she let this go on. I feel like I can't trust either of them now. She didn't mention anything about therapy. I couldn't bring it up without him knowing I know, and my mom said I can't do that. She implied he could become violent. I don't know exactly, but it freaked me out. Commenter 2. From the first paragraph, is he autistic and this is his obsession? Or is he more psychopathic, i.e. no empathy, doesn't give a shit about anyone? Reply: not autistic, at least there's no reasons to think so. Psychopath: well, after finding out all of this I couldn't say. Update about my dad's exotic meats obsession February 2nd, 2020, months later. Well, shit's really fucked now. A couple days after I posted I went back to school, and a few days after that my mom called me. She'd woken up to him gone and an email saying he had to leave for China earlier than expected, citing some issue at his company. That's around when the virus was breaking out. Yeah. He took off as soon as he got word something was happening in case it was going to prevent his trip, my mom thinks. But it gets worse because apparently with increased security there something looked suspicious and he was detained last week. In China during this outbreak, my mom had federal agents coming to interview her. That was Friday. They had a warrant to search the apartment, didn't take anything because he'd brought all his electronics with him. She says she was told they have reason to believe he's involved in an international animal trafficking and poaching ring. She hasn't had any contact with him yet because whoever's holding him isn't granting it. We don't even know exactly where he is, if it was near Wuhan, or in a prison or what. She was just told she needed to cooperate and his safety was being handled. Obviously there's probably a lot more than they're saying because it's a serious crime and I imagine diplomatic relations are tense at this moment, but honestly, he put himself there. The Chinese authorities have every reason to arrest him. My mom has shared what she knows with the American agents, some of the stuff I said in my last post. I told her to get a lawyer. Because who knows if even knowing about that stuff and not reporting is a crime too. My dad deserves this, but my mom had no part in what he was doing. If something happens to her I don't know what's going to happen with my siblings. I'm really fucking scared for my family, and furious with my dad for doing this to us. Plus Trump's travel ban means it's gonna be way more difficult to work everything out, so he could be sitting there waiting for trial for a long time. Even if they flew him back for trial he'll be in quarantine for 2 weeks. I feel like I'm watching my family's life collapse in slow motion. I'm seriously considering taking a leave this semester and going home to try to help my mom. She's practically having a mental break. She decided not to tell my siblings the real reason dad is gone, so their imaginations are running wild. I've reached out to my aunt again but she hasn't seen the message yet. I don't really trust my mom to manage finding a good lawyer and dealing with this and taking care of my siblings at the same time. On top of it her chronic illness has flared up from the stress. She spent all yesterday in bed from pain, so that's where we are now. Fucked. I didn't get a chance to take the advice on my last post about where to report him, was doing more research first, but that turned out to not matter. Thank you to everyone who wished the best for my family. We could really use it. TLDR, he's under arrest in China. No idea how long it will take to sort out because of the virus thing. My mom is a wreck but trying to cooperate, I'm doing my best to support her. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I should think your university would be very sympathetic to you postponing your course. They don't even need to know the full details. The fact your father has been detained in China amid the coronavirus outbreak should be ample. In terms of everyone, Dad took a business trip to China and has got caught up in the quarantine. Just go with that for now. There really is very little you can do right now, even with lawyers. It sounds like the authorities are already on the case. Your mother just needs to cooperate and beyond that, keep busy at home. None of you can get your father out at this point. Reply. Thinking I'll say something like this. There's no media attention on him as far as I've been able to tell, so just saying business trip should work. I'm going to speak to my mom again tomorrow and offer to come home for however long she needs. Commenter 2. Your family should definitely get tested for diseases. That's probably the most important thing to do at this time. Reply. Oh God, that didn't occur to me. Thanks. Stories number 3. New to this sub, update to OOP's parents resent him for starting his own family. I posted this in another sub, and someone recommend I post it here. I hope that's okay. I had somewhat of a revelation this weekend. I'm still processing how I feel about it and considering if I should confront my parents. Anyway, here it is. I believe my parents resent me for starting my own family. I, 40M, come from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. My older sister, Jane, is just a year older than me. There is a 6-year gap between me and the next sibling, then my mom had a kid every 2 to 3 years. Since Jane and I were the oldest, we always helped with the little kids and the chores around the house. In fact, it was common for my parents and other adults to refer to us as Jane and OP and the kids. It's like Jane and I were not considered children, it's more like we were 2 other adults living in the house. We were homeschooled, so we were home all the time. Part of my job is that I would wake up, make breakfast for the kids, then get them started with their school or activities before I started my own schoolwork. Jane would sleep in because she was more of a night owl, and it was her job to help at night with the baby, because there was always a baby. Jane and I did most of the chores around the house. We took turns either cleaning the kitchen or doing the laundry, of which there was a lot. I did all the guy stuff, like mowing the yard and taking out the trash. As I got older, I would delegate some of these chores to my younger brothers, but it was still my responsibility to make sure it got done. Once I was old enough to drive, I would run errands and take the kids everywhere. I can't tell you how many times I would take the kids to things like playdates or doctor's appointments. I would often tuck the kids in bed and tell them stories. To me these things were all just normal, but looking back on it I was more like a second dad to the kids than a brother. Jane and I did have a lot of freedom as teenagers to go out with our friends, if the chores were done. We didn't have cell phones back then. If we wanted to go out we would just tell our parents we were going and they didn't care, as long as we were back by the next morning. I moved out when I was 20, but I still spent a lot of time at my parents', and one of my younger siblings was almost always at my house. One brother, JJ, pretty much lived with me since he was 14 because he and our mom didn't get along. When JJ was 17 he got in a wreck and he called me instead of calling dad, because I was just the one who handled those kinds of things. During all of this time my parents always talked about how important it was for Jane and I to help with the kids because they were so busy with their ministry. I can't count how many times I had to drop what I was doing to take care of something because mom or dad were counseling someone. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. I hope I have painted an accurate picture of my childhood. Let's move on. I had not really dated much, but when I was 25 I met and started dating Anne. We fell in love fast, and got married less than a year later. My younger siblings love Anne. She is a great cook and hostess. Our house became the hangout spot. My younger siblings started calling her Mama Anne, something they still do to this day. We have now been married 15 years and have 2 kids of our own. My mom and Jane did not like Jane and get along okay now, but Anne and my mom do not have a good relationship. I never understood why, but I think I have finally figured out it's because they see it as and having taken me away. As Anne and I focused on our relationship and started a family, I spent less and less time doing things for my parents. My dad liked Anne at first, but over the past few years their relationship has soured. Throughout the years my dad has made comments to me about keeping up my responsibilities. One time he called me about one of the younger kids, who had gotten in a fight with my mom, and said, "You better get your brother and change his attitude. It's not okay how he treated your mom and you are going to make him apologize." A few years ago Anne and I set some boundaries with my parents, telling them we were not going to raise or discipline their kids. Our home is always open to my siblings, but we no longer let my parents try and use us to straighten them up. My parents have not taken this well. About a year ago Anne injured her foot and couldn't walk for a while. Just as she was getting better, I was diagnosed with kidney disease, which then turned into kidney failure. I've had several surgeries, with another one coming in a few weeks. It's been a rough year. During this time my parents have not only refused to help, they have actively made things harder for us. Things like promising to help with our kids but then canceling at the last minute, usually because something ministry-related came up. Recently my sister-in-law, who lives in another state, had a baby, and my mom has been staying with her and helping for the past 6 weeks. My Isael has said that mom is a godsend and is so wonderful. My dad has gone to help every weekend. This hurts me, because my mom wouldn't give us a single night to help with our youngest when he was born. Anyway, I'm sorry this post has turned out longer than I thought it would. I needed to get some of this off my chest. This weekend I was talking to another sister and telling her how I don't understand why mom and dad don't treat me like they do the rest of the kids, even Jane. It's like I'm not one of their children, and it just kind of hit me that they resent me for getting married and starting my own family and leaving them to raise their own kids. Part of me is relieved to finally realize why they treat me like they do, and part of me is sad. I'm kind of scared about this upcoming surgery, and I really wish I had a parent I could talk to about it. But I don't feel like I have parents, just some people that I co-parented my siblings with. Editor's note, the OP had a link to the first update at the end, which has been omitted for redundancy. Update. Editor's note, this post came with a link to the original and a TLDR, both of which have been omitted to reduce the character count and avoid spoilers. Update, I spoke with my wife, Anne, about it last night. I said something along the lines of, I've realized that my parents resent me for starting my own family and not helping them as much, and that is why they treat me so differently. And I think you've been trying to gently tell me this for years but I was too dense to get it. We were sitting in the bed at the time, and she leaned over and patted me on the head and said, "You are so pretty." I laughed for like 10 minutes, it was a great emotional release. A lot of you said she sounds wonderful, and she really is. I just can't express how much I love her. About Jane, my older sister Jane did get married and start a family, about 2 years after I did. Jane and I had a falling out and didn't speak for several years, but we are okay now, just not very close. Our falling out was more about religion than anything. She is very religious like my parents, while I am not. I am religious and we attend church, but it's not our whole life like it is for my parents and Jane. Younger siblings, the youngest is 22, so they are all adults now. The second to youngest passed away several years ago, so there are 8 of us now. I am very close with all of my younger siblings. They still come hang out at my house all the time, and they are all great aunts and uncles to my kids. All of them, including Jane, are upset with how my parents treated me this past year. Help with my kids, while I am disappointed in my parents for not helping, I do not need their help. And then I have close friends, plus we both have siblings that help. Anne's parents live far away, but they help when they can. We really are okay and feel very blessed and loved with all help we have received. Therapy, part of my kidney treatment plan includes access to a therapist, and I love her. She has been great in helping me learn to live with an illness. I'm not sure if she is the right person to speak with about my parents, but I will ask her and see if she can refer someone. If not, I will wait until after my surgery to bring this up, as I need to just focus on that right now. Setting boundaries. When I say my parents won't help, it's not that they say they won't help, it's that they offer to help and then either bail at the last minute or they change the plans so much that it causes Anne and I a lot of stress. A few months ago Anne was sick and my mother offered to pick our kids up from school. It's a long story, but she kept changing things and making it very complicated and my youngest ended up being left alone for a little while and he got scared. After that, I had a harsh talk with my parents and told them how disappointed I was in them, and how I needed to focus on my health and they were making things worse. I told them they are not allowed to take my kids anywhere, and they are not allowed to just drop by at my house, and in fact they were not even allowed to offer to help, because my mom doesn't take no for an answer and will nag until she wears me down. My parents were mad about this but all 7 of my siblings took my side and rallied about me, and so my parents have respected that so far. I don't think my parents are awful people, I think they had this vision of how they wanted to have this big family and this big ministry and I think they just didn't realize the responsibilities they put on Jane and I. I have spoken to them in the past and expressed how it was messed up that they put so much on us as kids and they have apologized. Putting my parents on blast at their church, several people recommended going to their church and telling people how they have treated me. You don't understand this church, they would praise my parents for putting God and the ministry above everything else. These super religious people are crazy. I guess that's it for now. My surgery is in less than 2 weeks, so I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to put this thing with my parents on the back burner and later I will decide what, if anything, I'm going to do. Thanks again to everyone for your comments, it has really helped me work through some feelings. New update. Editor's note, this post had a link to the previous Boru and a TLDR, both of which have been omitted for brevity and redundancy. Thanks to everyone who has reached out and wished me a speedy recovery. My surgery was last week and it is going better than expected. All the surgeries and treatments in the past year felt like it was just keeping me alive, but with this surgery, kidney transplant, I feel like I'm working towards getting my normal life back. It's been hard and painful, but I was expecting it to be worse so I can't complain at all. And is always telling me that she doesn't get enough credit for being funny, so the fact that so many of you laughed when she told me I was pretty has made her happy. She said, I like these Reddit people. This whole post started because I was having a conversation with one of my sisters, I'll call her 6, since I can't keep making up names. Plus, she is following this thread and will hate that I am calling her that. 6 had a fight with our parents and I was sharing with her that and I had recently set strong boundaries with them and encouraged her to do the same. So she did, and they did not take it well. This led to several conversations with different siblings, and both 5 and 9 also decided to set some boundaries. This has also led to other siblings deciding to confront our parents about how they have treated me this past year while I have been sick. Jane, the oldest, called me the day before my surgery to check on me, and we ended up talking about our childhood. We have not been close for a number of years, however I feel like we bonded on this call. It was interesting talking to her as an adult and reliving some things. She has been in therapy for a few years, and she said sometimes she will be talking, and her therapist will stop her and say, Jane, you just casually rolled through some messed up stuff. We need to stop and unpack this. For a long time I have blamed her for the way she treated me when we were younger, but now I am beginning to understand that she was also just a kid trying to cope. I have a lot more grace for her now. We have been texting a lot the past few weeks. My parents did come visit after the surgery, but we didn't talk about any family drama. My siblings have said they are not taking these new boundaries well at all. I hope that one day they wake up and realize that all 8 of their children are disappointed in them and they work to be better people, but I'm not holding my breath. It seems they are placing all the blame like they normally do. This is just an attack by the devil. And then I decided that moving forward we are going to continue low contact with strong boundaries. With such a large family, going no contact would be hard and create a lot of awkward situations where we would still have to see them. We have also talked to our kids and they have both expressed they want to have a relationship with their grandparents. While I do not expect my parents to change, I do believe they will respect our boundaries. My attitude towards them has also changed. I no longer feel like I owe them anything. We will continue a relationship with them because it is what's best for my family, not because they deserve it. Lastly, I received a recommendation for a family therapist and I have an appointment scheduled for next month. Stories number 4. Aita for refusing to let my stepmom be called grandma. I, 29F, just had my first child, and my stepmom, Laura, 56F, is insisting my baby call her grandma. Laura married my dad when I was a teen and has never been a maternal figure. She even told me back then, "I'm not your mom," which was fine, I already had one. Now, Laura says she's earned the grandma title after years in the family, but I disagree. I told her the title is for my mom and my partner's mom, and Laura got upset, claiming I'm disrespecting her. My dad backed her up, saying I'm being petty and should move on from the past. I don't hate Laura, but I feel grandma should reflect a real bond, and she's never been that close to me. Am I being unfair, or is it reasonable to set this boundary? Aita. Stories number 5. Aita for leaving my sister's wedding early and causing a scene. Okay, so, my sister, 32F, got married last weekend, and it was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, but now I'm, 28F, being called selfish and immature by half my family. I don't know if I'm in the wrong here or not. For context, my sister and I have never been super close. She's always been the golden child and I'm like, the leftover kid or whatever. Our parents made it pretty obvious growing up. But still, I tried to be supportive and help with the wedding when she asked me to be a bridesmaid. Fast forward to the wedding day, and everything starts off fine. I'm in my dress, hair done, smiling for pics. You know, all the bridesmaid duties. But then, during the reception, my sister gives this long speech thanking everyone who helped her special day happen. She thanked our parents, her in-laws, her husband, Obs, the other bridesmaids, but not me. She literally skipped my name while thanking the bridal party, even though I spent hours helping her with stuff like centerpieces and last-minute errands. Everyone noticed, including my boyfriend, who leaned over and whispered, "Did she just skip you?" I brushed it off and thought, maybe it was a mistake. But then. Her maid of honor, her bestie since college, goes up for a speech and jokes about how she's, basically the sister, my sister, never had. Like what? Everyone laughs and claps, and I'm sitting there like, cool, I guess I don't exist. At this point, I'm feeling super embarrassed and hurt. I try to stay calm, but when my boyfriend suggests we just leave, I agree. I didn't want to cry at the table and make it even weirder. So we left quietly. Apparently, people noticed I was gone because the next day, my sister texts me saying I ruined her wedding by storming off. I told her I didn't storm off, I just felt unappreciated and needed space. She doubled down, saying the day wasn't about me and I'm selfish for making it a big deal. Now my mom and some aunts are siding with her, saying I was disrespectful. But my boyfriend and a few friends are on my side, saying I was treated unfairly. So, Reddit, Aita for leaving my sister's wedding early. Stories number 6. Aita for calling the police on roommate's GF to get her out of our house while he was at work. About 2 weeks ago my roommate, Dave 23 years, invited his GF, Julie 22 years, to stay after she was evicted. Dave asked me if she could stay with us till she found a place beforehand and I agreed. We seemed to get along and she really didn't bother me and seemed to stick to the house rules we had. So all was fine. Now a few days ago I was staying over at my friend's house and my friend happens to bump into Julie's Instagram account and this girl was taking pictures in my room with my clothes, jewelry, shoes, and she even had a couple racy pictures wearing my lingerie. Basically she did several photo shoots in my room with my clothing and things. Of course I lost it. But the worst of it all was these pictures where she was standing on my prayer rug, which is highly important to my faith, with her dirty shoes. She knows how important that prayer rug is to me and my faith and so is well aware of the disrespect and hurt it would cause. So I cut my visit short and went home immediately the next day. I came home to Julie there and told her everything I knew. She immediately started crying and saying that I am overreacting and that I was scaring her with my anger etc., to be honest I was shouting so that could have been scary for her. I told her to get the fuck out and took back my spare key. She grabbed a couple things and left. We agreed that Dave would bring her the rest of her things. An hour later she comes back and goes around the back and tries to enter through the back door. I happened to be in the kitchen and shouted at her to go away. I warned her several times that I'd call the police if she tried to push in. She kept at it and finally got in, and true to my word I called the police. The police arrived and asked her several times to just leave, but she kept arguing with them and the officer got annoyed and arrested her. She spent the night at jail. And as she didn't have her phone on her, she left it in her car. She couldn't contact Dave. When Dave came home from work later that day he greeted me like normal, and that was not what I expected, so I said, "Have you spoken to Julie?" and he goes, "No." So I told him everything and this man started yelling at me telling me I was an asshole and took things too far by calling the police. Now I feel like I didn't do anything wrong, but Dave's rant gave me pause. He felt like I should have let him deal with it or something. Did I handle this like an asshole? I don't feel like I did, but maybe my anger is blinding me to see things differently. Clarification: the officers initially asked her to just leave. They tried talking to her for at least 15-30 minutes and explained how they'd rather not arrest her. But she kept shouting and swearing at me and them. Eventually one of the officers told her that if she didn't leave by the count of 5 he'd arrest her. He then counted to 5, she didn't leave as was requested and they arrested her. Some extra clarification: when we found her Insta page it was like 3 a.m. and so obviously I couldn't really drive home that late and instead got back home at around 9/10 a.m. By that time Dave was already at work and honestly I kinda had tunnel vision and he really didn't come into my mind. Also Dave doesn't have or use Instagram, so I doubt he knew. This all happened in less than 5 days. For those asking, I am black. I am not part of the Muslim faith. Other religions also use prayer rugs. Info on my faith: also Dave and Julie are white. Editor's note: I included that comment down below. Some comments. Commenter: info: when she came back after leaving with a couple things, was she there to pick up more of her stuff, or there to try to reoccupy the house? Reply: when I told her to leave we agreed that whatever she couldn't take with Dave would give to her at a later date. She came back because literally her words: "How dare you kick me out?" Commenter: info: did it not occur to you at any point to talk to your roommate and let him handle it? I totally appreciate your anger. But it seems like you could have avoided the nuclear option, with both of them, by giving him the heads up and an opportunity to deal with it. Reply: to be honest, no. I feel like she took the action to violate, disrespect and breach all boundaries, so I needed to deal with her and not Dave. I didn't want to even temporarily share a home with person who had no boundaries, decency, or respect. I asked her to leave. She left. She came back. She broke in. She stayed even after the officer asked her to just leave. She didn't. She disrespected the officers and she caused her own arrest by not listening to the officers' reasonable instructions. All things could have been avoided if she behaved like a decent person, but she didn't. I feel like Dave has no right to be upset with me. He should be understanding of my feelings. Forget about the disgustingness and oddity of wearing another person's clothing and lingerie. This woman disrespected my faith and centuries of tradition and religion. My great-great-grandparents wove this prayer rug and they gave their blood, sweat and tears to protect and keep it in my family. People literally died to keep this in our family and she knew all of this and still she decided to use it like a fucking rag. Commenter: LOL no. NTA. You confronted the culprit for her actions. She escalated the situation by not leaving after being warned. You may want to look into a restraining order or something legally binding her from you and your space. And be very clear with Rumi about why she is not welcome. Whether you or he moves can play itself out, but make sure you cover your bases. She did it once, will probably do it again. Reply: so I actually filmed all the images she posted on Instagram to use as evidence and I recorded everything from when I first approached her. So she can't even say I threatened her or did anything other than confront her. The officers did look at it as she tried to say I hit her. Lucky we also have cameras around the outside of the house and so it captured her breaking in and her interaction with the police and me. I downloaded the video and audio files, took it to the police and they've told me to file a restraining order, which I have done. Editor's note: OOP doesn't mean she received the restraining order, just that she filed for one. Dave has been staying with her in an Airbnb and only came home today, but he didn't say anything to me other than to grab a couple things. I actually sent all the recordings to him just now and we'll see what he says because the story she's been telling him does not match with all that happened. My faith: I am not Muslim nor Middle Eastern. Just so you know, other faiths use prayer rugs and the majority of Muslims aren't Middle Eastern. I am black, of part Ethiopian descent, and I am part of a monotheistic faith called Eb Wak. It is unfortunately dying out. We have maybe less than 20k followers spread across the globe. you would find I would say 90-95% of us in the Horn of Africa where it originated, and most keep it a secret since they are still persecuted or ostracized for practicing it. People quite literally still die to this day for practicing it. Many of us practitioners don't share our traditions and culture due to fear, and very little is written about the faith, so you will find very little online, but still feel free to Google it. We are a very small and tight-knit community, and it is often frowned upon to share our practices, so there is a lot of secrecy shrouded around it, which is why I am very protective and careful of my faith. It predates the Abrahamic faiths, and with the ushering in of Christianity, Islam and Judaism in the Horn of Africa it started to die out and literally is about to die out with the next generation. Commenter, did she post the disrespecting of the prayer rug on Instagram, too? Thinking it would get her more followers or something? Pretending the fancy clothes are hers are one thing, but the whole rug thing is batshit crazy. That wasn't envy of her nice things, that was straight up hate. What a psychopath. Reply, my prayer rug is never used as it is far too old and fragile to use and was handed down through the generations. So even I have never taken a picture of it or shown it off. I believe only 4 non-members of my faith have ever seen it. My father, a guy at TSA, Dave and Julie. She had seen it once before when I was cleaning it and I explained how important it was to me, so she wasn't unaware. But still she went out of her way to find it, unwrap it and place it on the floor. The prayer rug is about the size of a large pillowcase, and in the picture she sat on it with her legs crossed and another she was laying her head on it with the phone angled down. She also took one where she was showing her dirty heels off on it. She posted it on Instagram. She said she did it because it was pretty, bohemian, spiritual looking, and because you don't often come across silk and gold threaded items. Update in comments, 7 hours later. This is an update on my dilemma with Julie and Dave. He truly thought she took one of my kimono robes or something and that I was overreacting. He watched all the recordings and he called me to profusely apologize for not believing me. He spoke to Julie about the recording and questioned the story she was telling him. After some talking she basically told him that she was envious of the things I had, and since she was trying to be an Insta influencer she needed to constantly have new things to post. She also said that she felt like me having luxury/expensive lingerie and undergarments was a waste because no one got to see it. And since she couldn't afford lingerie from Brodel, Agent Provocateur, Guilla La Bruna etc., I was being a selfish ass for not sharing, and so she felt like she deserved it more. I keep a fairly private online life and don't feel comfortable posting scantily dressed pictures of myself, nor do I wear it outside. I have no issues with others doing so, I just don't. So she wanted to show my things off to people who would appreciate it online since I wouldn't and didn't. She took the pictures with them to get more traffic etc. And apparently it was a hit since she got more followers, engagement, and was even getting requests for sponsorships for more luxury item sellers on Insta. The craziest part is she was doing this for far longer than the 2 weeks she was living with us. Some of the pictures were taken months ago. Can you imagine my shock that I have basically been sharing undies with her for months? You can't imagine how this is fucking with my mind. Also her roommates got her evicted for the exact same reason. She was stealing things from them and taking pictures with their things while pretending that she's some jet-setting trust fund kid. I am not rich or even comfortable, I don't come from wealth. I just like certain things and save and skimp for months/years to get the expensive/luxury items I have, and I take very good care of my things. Her envy is very confusing to me since she actually comes from money, not trust fund money but still money. She still has the pictures up on Instagram, but Dave was able to get her to delete the ones with my prayer rug. She refused to remove the other ones, and honestly the most important thing for me was protecting what my family has protected for centuries. Dave seems to be truly genuine in his regret. Also it does help that he offered to replace all the things she violated. He also broke up with her. Oh, she has called me several times, blocked her now, and she even did Insta live on why I am a massive bitch. Lingerie. I threw away all my underwear, brasiers, bodysuits, lingerie, even my bathing suits, bikinis. Update on this, I decided to retrieve things from the garbage and wash and sell the items on Depop Etsy since my collection is worth a couple thousand. Editor's note: wasn't sure whether to mark this as inconclusive or concluded. I went with concluded since they broke up and Dave are all good now, but I'm willing to change it if needed. Stories number 7. Aita for cutting my daughter off completely when she was 18. I, 44M, have a daughter, Jess, 18F, with my ex-wife, Mary, 44F. Mary and I had a tumultuous relationship. 6 years ago, when Jess was 12, we came to the mutual decision to get a divorce after Mary had an emotional, and most likely physical, although she never admitted to it, affair with her coworker. Some of the fault for the divorce probably lay with me, but in all honesty, I would call it at least 90% Mary's fault. I believe that she suffers from BPD, but she never made any effort to get treated, despite my urging her and promising to pay for therapy. After our divorce, Jess more or less became something of a problem child, which I totally understood. I did everything in my power to create strict boundaries and reasonable rules within our house, but the second that she went back to her mother's house, Mary would let her do whatever she wanted. I paid child support during this period, which amounted to about $800 per month. When Jess was 14, she got caught with drugs at school. On our way home, I explained to her that she should be thanking her lucky stars she wasn't expelled, and that her punishment would involve no devices. The return of said devices would be contingent on her behavior and grades improving. That was the last time Jess came to my house. When she went back to her mother's, she henceforth refused to even get in the car when I went to pick her up. The reason was clear: Mary let her do whatever she wanted without repercussion, while I would hold her accountable. Mary got quasi-full custody, despite it not being court-mandated. I upped child support payments in response because I wanted to take care of my daughter. In December, Jess turned 18. I haven't spoken to her in a year. Mary texted me frantically a few days ago about child support, and I simply responded that Jess was 18. She then tore into me about abandoning my child. Jess made a TikTok about having a deadbeat dad the next day, probably with Mary's encouragement, as she knows I check her social media. There were a lot of fabricated details in the story, but I wondered if I was an asshole for just leaving them high and dry there. Stories number 8. Aita for telling my husband I don't want his mom in the delivery room. I'm 35 weeks pregnant with our first child, and things are starting to get tense with my Milil. She's been all over the place, saying it's tradition for her to be there during the birth like she was for her other grandkids. She's even started assuming she'll be in the room with us when the time comes. I've always planned for it to just be me and my husband. I want the moment to be calm and private. I told my husband this, and at first, he was supportive. But now, his mom's been pressuring him, saying it's her grandchild too and she helped bring him into the world. Last week, she showed up with a hospital bag for herself, ready to go. I told her nicely that I didn't want anyone else in the room except my husband. She got upset and cried, saying I was taking away a special moment for her. Now, my husband's in the middle. He gets where I'm coming from but feels guilty about upsetting his mom. He even asked if I'd let her stay for early labor, but I said no. I need the space, and I don't want to worry about her emotions while I'm in labor. She's been talking behind my back to the family, calling me controlling. My husband thinks I should reconsider for the sake of their relationship, but I feel like I have to set boundaries. Aita. Top comments. Commenter 1, husband, I'm having a dangerous medical procedure. I'm going to be naked. Everyone is going to be looking at my hoo-ha, I'm going to be topless trying to breastfeed, I'm going to be in intense pain, I'm possibly getting stitches down there, I might poop on the table, I'm going to be bleeding into a diaper. And I don't want your mom there for that. I'm bringing your child into the world, why aren't you supporting me? Why are you letting your mom stress me out and upset me? Why are you allowing your mom to gossip about me and name-call because I want privacy at a medical procedure? Why aren't you on my team? When your husband has a serious medical procedure, he can invite his mom. Commenter 2, tell your lousy, cowardly doormat of a husband that if he keeps pestering you about how mommy should be there, he won't be in the room either. Childbirth is not a spectator sport and the only view that matters is that if the person undergoing a messy, scary medical procedure. That's you. Everyone else can fuck off, including your husband. Better to give birth alone than with people who will stress you out. NTA, but my L and AH husband sure are. Commenter 3, NTA, your delivery, your baby, your choice. I would, to be safe, make the hospital aware of who you want in the room with you. If she does turn up, I assume she will, they'll refuse her entry, and you won't have to deal with having to kick her out, or have any stressful interaction during labor. Her comment of helping bring your grandchild into the world, is wild. Sharing DNA and being physically involved in your grandchild being conceived are two vastly different things. Commenter 4, NTA, your husband needs to remove himself from the middle and be firmly on your side for this. He's as much, if not more, of the problem for even entertaining her tantrum when you've expressly stated your wishes for when the time comes. Childbirth is stressful enough without having the added burden of someone else trying to hijack your time. Update. It's been 12 days since I posted, and things have been a lot. After reading all the advice and taking some time to think, I sat down with my husband again to talk everything through. I explained how much I need him to prioritize us right now and how important it is for me to feel safe and comfortable during labor. Thankfully, he seemed to understand more this time and agreed that his mom's feelings shouldn't come before mine in this situation. Top comments. Commenter 1, the fact that this is such a common issue blows my mind. I don't have kids but have friends that do and a lot of them experienced this. Glad it worked out for you though. Commenter 2, can't even imagine having my own mother there, let alone a woman that I did not grow up with and did not choose to live with. WTF is that? How many entitled women are out there demanding to be present with a delivery? Giving birth is a highly personal thing. I could hardly stand the nurses present, and they were necessary at the time. OP, if your MIL would ever need surgery, demand to be present in the OR. You just need to see that tumor begging removed from her. Stories number 9. I overheard my older brother crying 2 nights in a row. How do I help him? Hi, sorry if this isn't the right place, but I need help. Throwaway because my family knows my main account. I'm 16F, I have an older brother who's 20. He doesn't live with us anymore, but he's back home for the holidays. 2 nights ago I went downstairs for water and passed his room. It was super late, like 1 in the morning, and I heard him crying. It sounded bad, he was sobbing. I think he thought the door was closed, but it was open a crack so I could hear him pretty clearly. I didn't know what to do or how to help. Yesterday he was acting fine and I wasn't sure whether to bring it up or not. He's not an emotional person, and if he does discuss his issues, it's probably with his friends because he doesn't do it with me. He was laughing and joking around like normal, and if it wasn't for me overhearing him, I wouldn't have known something was wrong. I left it alone, but tonight I heard him crying again. It just made me feel terrible. He sounded devastated. I don't know what's hurting him. How do I approach him? What do I even say? We are close, but not that close where we tell each other everything, and he's never cried in front of me since we were very young, so I don't know what to do. Sad face. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Without knowing how your relationship is with your brother, my advice is to find a time when it's just the two of you together and let him know that you thought you heard him crying in his room the other night and you want him to know that you're there for him if he needs to talk. Reply. That's the thing, I was going to do this but realized I don't even know what to say. He's the type of guy who'll laugh if someone tries to have an emotional conversation with him and calls stuff like that pussy shit. Which is why it was so shocking for me to hear him cry. It must be something bad. I want to approach him, but I don't know how because it's very likely that he'll just push me away or get defensive, which I don't want. I should allow her brother to come and talk with her if he wants. She can pick up a few of his favorite snacks or something and place them in his room. Reply. Thank you, this was really helpful. I think I'll try reaching out. He might know that I overheard him because today I went out and bought some snacks which I gave to him, and I was kind of tiptoeing around him, so I'm pretty sure he's picked up on that. I don't want to make him feel like I'm pitying him, because he hates that shit. I guess I'll just try and talk to him, and pray he doesn't push me away because I genuinely feel so bad. I haven't seen him in a while and I was excited that he was back, and he's having a miserable time. Do you think it's better if I talk to him in his room or ask if we can go out somewhere and then talk to him in the car? Commenter 3. I think it's also important to remember that he is your big brother, and has probably taken it upon himself to watch out for you without expecting you to ever look out for him. The older sibling always tends to feel some responsibility towards their younger sibling. I'm not sure if this would be helpful, but a gentle reminder like, you would want to help me if I was having a hard time and I want to be a good sister to you the way you've been a good brother to me. Framing it in a way that he can empathize with could help him be more comfortable opening up. But please, other men on here, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm usually just on this sub to observe, but couldn't pass up this thought that came into my head while reading comments. Reply. This is a great perspective and I hadn't considered this. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons he doesn't share too much with me. I've cried in front of him before and he's helped me out, but it hasn't been the other way around since we were really young. Thank you again. Update. Hi everybody. I'm not sure if anyone remembers me, but about a month ago I posted here asking for advice because I, 16F, had overheard my older brother crying late at night. I just wanted to update if anybody is interested. I want to thank everybody who commented. I got some really good advice. My brother is not the type of person who's physically affectionate, so the day after I made my post, I went out and bought some chocolates and stuff and left it in his room. He asked me if I was the one who'd done it and I said yes. He asked me why and I just said that I missed him and I had noticed he was looking a bit down, so I thought about cheering him up, and then I hugged him. I thought I would have to give him time and space before he was willing to talk, but his reaction was totally unexpected. He didn't cry, but he got weirdly tense and ended up confessing that he had been having a hard time recently. We sat together in his room and spoke for a long time. He was talking about uni and the friends he'd made there, and apparently one of his mates, while driving back home for the holidays, had gotten into a terrible road accident. He was in the hospital for a week or so and my brother got the news a few days ago that he didn't make it. I don't know if I was any help. I was sitting there quiet, letting him speak, and at the end of it, I gave him a hug again. He said I was the first person he told and he didn't want help from other people, but it had clearly affected him badly. I asked him if he would consider therapy or something and he said no, so I guess he wants some space to grieve. But he looked as if a weight had been taken off his shoulders. Later on he ended up telling our parents what happened, and contacted his mate's family who invited him to the funeral. The rest of the holidays went well. Our dad bought the whole family F1 tickets for Christmas, so we have that to look forward to. He's going back to uni soon, but he told me he was glad he could open up to someone. Thank you everybody who helped. Again, if there's any more advice that people have, I would love to hear it. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, wow, this is so amazing, I'm having a hard time believing it's even real. If it is, you are an incredible sister. Good thoughts for you both. It's tragic all around about your brother's friend, but your kindness and support are amazing. Reply, it's funny because we were not the closest growing up. I remember we used to be mostly annoyed by each other and I couldn't wait for him to move out. But ever since he actually left the house, I think we both chilled out. When I told him I missed him, I meant it. Like I said, how much I helped, but I hope I did. BC, it was upsetting seeing him that way. Thank you so much for your kind words. Commenter 2, as a dad whose 2 kids are very close to each other, I'm glad your brother has you. I have a very good relationship with my kids, but the fact that they can talk to each other about things that they might not want to share with their parents right away makes me happy for them. You're a good sibling. Reply, this is so sweet. I definitely have things that I would rather talk to my brother about than my parents. Nothing on my parents' OFC, I love them, but it's a lot more comfortable discussing some things with people your age. YK. All love to you and your family, and thank you for your nice words. Stories number 10. Aita for not checking to see if my wife locks the door. I, 34M, had a brief time a few months ago where my wife, 32F, found our front door had been left unlocked overnight a couple of times. We were home. She said this made her uncomfortable. Who left it unlocked? Who's to say? Maybe me. I can own up to that. So I started making a strong habit of making sure I always lock the door when I come in the house. Even if I'm going to be going back outside quickly. Problem solved, right? Well, fast forward to now and all of a sudden my wife comes to me and says, what can we do to make sure you check to see if the door is locked at the end of the night? This is like 3 now that I've brought it up. I go to bed before you, so it should be your responsibility. Now, I know she was the last one home yesterday. Neither of us left the house after she got home. So she left the door unlocked last night and is mad at me for not checking behind her. I explained my perspective, and the change in habit I had made. But she keeps on with saying since I am usually the last one awake, I should be checking the door, and is now being terse/short with me. I can see logic to both our rationales, but am I being unreasonable to think she's being a touch ridiculous about this? She left the door unlocked, didn't say that she did, and got mad at me for not checking behind her. Stories number 11. Aita for not wanting to sign something from my wife's employer without speaking to a lawyer. Advice needed. Sorry if this is long. I usually don't post on Reddit, but a friend suggested I do for advice. For a few years, my wife has been working hard to make a go of being a Vtuber streamer. She had her own little character, got a bit of a following, and ended up getting another character to stream as with a talent agency that specializes in that. I'm only vaguely familiar with this. I know there are massive agencies. I don't think hers is a very popular or big agency, although it does have a large following online. So far it's been going really well. She's been able to make it her full-time job, and seems really happy with everything. I am too, and am immensely proud of her knowing the level of dedication she's put into it. About a month ago, I got a weird email from someone claiming to be with this talent agency. I didn't even notice it at first. It went to my spam box, was worded weirdly and something seemed off about it, so I didn't pay any mind to it. I figured it was spam because I'm subscribed to my wife everywhere possible and the talent agency. However, I then got another one and another one asking me to respond as soon as I can. The TLDR of the email is they want me to sign a legal agreement that says A, I won't represent myself as wife's VTuber character, or wife's actual legal name, romantic partner in any online or in-person event, capacity, and B, in the event we were to split up, I would be forbidden from revealing any information regarding a breakup or divorce to protect her anonymity and identity. I read through the legal agreement and it appears to have been done up by an actual lawyer and everything. It was, frankly, dumbfounded. As I mentioned, I'm only vaguely familiar with the world of VTubers and anime streamers, so I understand how the majority of VTubers keep their identities hidden, and that there is an element of purity in this sort of idle stuff that would cause fans to be disillusioned, which honestly seems so stupid. That said, I know some comments on streams/videos have connected her new character to her old one. She never hid her identity on her old one but never went out of her way to show it. What I'm trying to say is if someone did a handful of Google searches, finding who my wife is, or at least looks like, isn't exactly an impossibility. When I got home from work, I brought it up to my wife. I could tell she knew it was coming and was being avoidant of talking about it. I asked if she had some concern that I was going to go online and just dox her, but she said it was just how this industry works. I remembered a time a couple weeks ago I posted a few photos of us on Twitter, where I have less than 100 followers, and she seemed kind of panicky asking me to take them down because she didn't like how she looked, or how she kept loudly mentioning or randomly interjecting about reading how locking accounts or making them super private was really good for security. She had locked/deleted some of her personal accounts at this time too. Long story short, she just told me to sign it and that it was more of a formality to make her employment smoother. The thing is, this is a legal agreement. It's been drafted up by, as far as I can tell, a legitimate law office that represents this talent agency. There are other clauses in this agreement that I won't get into but are frankly as ridiculous as the two I mentioned. I admitted I would be happy to help her if it would make things easier, but I wanted to speak to a lawyer first before signing anything just to be safe. We argued about it a bit and I think she saw where I was coming from when I asked why I was the only one who had to sign anything. What about friends, family, past employers, teachers, ex-BFS etc. She kind of huffed about it but said I could see a lawyer but to book it fast because she didn't want it to be some big delay. She was quite cold with me for the next few days. For example, I faked sick to stay home one day to make us dinner because her streaming time overlaps with when I'm home, so we haven't had many meals together since she started. I told her it was ready and she just asked me to put it in the fridge because she had to prep for a collaboration stream. She's also sent me a couple texts as she's streaming reminding me to be quiet or suggesting I go hang out with friends or something until she's done. I got a little fed up with the treatment and finally asked if she was being pissy with me because I didn't sign it, and she said, "What do you think?" Yes, obviously. I asked her what she would do if my job legally demanded she put down in writing what her job is asking of me. She said, "I would sign it. I wouldn't stand in the way of your dreams." I asked if she genuinely thought I was standing in the way of her dreams. That really hurt to hear considering the amount of love and time I've given her towards this, the encouragement, the hours I've spent reassuring her she's talented and does a good job, and frankly the thousands upon thousands of dollars I've helped her for equipment, commissioning artists, etc. She rolled her eyes and huffed, so I asked again, and she shouted, "If you don't sign it, then yes, because they're already being weird with me and passing me over for certain opportunities and I know it's because you haven't signed it yet." I have a meeting with a lawyer next week to go over it, but I am getting pretty guilt-tripped by her and her parents for not blindly signing it. Our friend group is split down the middle, but the general consensus is it would just be easier to sign it to make her happy. I don't think it's unreasonable to want to consult a legal professional over a legal document, but maybe I'm not that good of a husband after all. So, Aita here for wanting to consult with a lawyer over this. Update. TLDR. Is that my wife joined a Vtuber agency. Agency asked me to sign a legal document. I wanted to see a lawyer first, but it caused a bit of a rift in relationship. To answer a lot of people, yes, I saw a lawyer. It was an interesting meeting. The lawyer read through the whole thing with a smirk and said, "The only benefit of signing this would be keeping your wife happy. I wouldn't personally sign it, but if you do, and it comes to it, please let me represent you because this is hilarious." She said there's no way it would hold up in a court, especially because if the law firm who represents them decides to sue me for breaching it, they'll have to reveal my wife's identity in court documents that will most likely be public anyway. Instead, she contacted them on my behalf seeking clarification on what happens if any part of the agreement is broken, as it's not stipulated, and if I'm to sign the agreement, what sort of compensation I would receive. I didn't sign it in the end, but I've told my wife once the lawyer hears back, and they recommended, I would. As of writing this post, they haven't responded, and frankly, it hasn't seemingly affected my wife's VTubing career. Things with my wife are still pretty rocky. To address a couple comments, she does actually earn quite well off streaming, donations, subs, etc., slightly less than she was making at her previous job but enough to still contribute to the household and live comfortably. That said, she won't speak to me about it anymore though. She's fine otherwise, but if I ask her how things are, I'll get a brush off, fine, or occasionally, you don't care, you don't have to keep asking. I'm still rooting for her, and she's still growing every time I check her channels or social medias. She's doing streaming events, and collaborations with other VTubers. She seems happy with it all, and that's enough for me. I know her last job was soul-crushing, and she's worked really hard. If she wants to be cold with me about it, that's her call. I'm just happy she's doing something she loves. That's it. Boring update, I know. Sorry. Stories number 12. There's a man in my belly dance group that makes the majority of the group uncomfortable, but the teacher loves him. I've been part of a belly dance group for 3 years and recently a man has joined. The teacher has a vision for the group to be inclusive and welcoming to all, and I think she really does want a male member, but this certain man can't be it. He's creepy, says inappropriate things, and forces himself into interactions/conversations. He chooses to wear small shorts that leave little to the imagination, and his favorite dance move, it's really not a dance move at all, is humping the air. I know men can belly dance, but it's not about having a women's only group, it's about feeling comfortable. One member had enough and took him to the side after class. She straight up told him he's not welcome anymore. She said he seemed remorseful and didn't mean to intrude on our safe space. I really am grateful for her speaking up, but the teacher has no clue about it. I think in the end our teacher will choose our comfort over some random man, and hopefully from here on out we can be more discerning about who we allow in. Stories number 13. Aita for breaking up with my boyfriend because he's a mama's boy. I, 28F, recently broke up with my boyfriend, 30M, because of his relationship with his mom. At first, I thought it was sweet how close they were, but over time, it started to really bother me. For context, his mom is very involved in his life. She still does things for him that, in my opinion, a grown man should be handling himself. For example, when she visits, she'll cut his steak for him and put the fork in his mouth, wash his underwear, run a bath for him and help him wash his hair, and tuck him into bed for naps. When she's around, he completely reverts to a child. He stops flushing the toilet, doesn't clean up after himself, and just acts like he's 8 years old. It's like all the maturity and independence I felt for just disappears. I tried to talk to him about how uncomfortable it made me. I explained that while I respect his love for his mom, I think there should be some boundaries. He brushed it off, saying I was overreacting and that this was just how they've always been. The final straw was when she stayed over for a weekend, and he expected me to cater to her the way she caters to him. I'm talking cleaning up after both of them, cooking all the meals, and even joining in on their bizarre nap routine. I felt like I was the third wheel in my own relationship. After that, I told him I couldn't do it anymore and ended things. He was shocked and said I was jealous of his mom and just didn't understand their bond. His mom, of course, called me ungrateful and immature. Now, I'm wondering if I overreacted. I didn't want to make him choose between me and his mom, but I also couldn't see myself in a relationship where I felt like the side character to their dynamic. Aita. Stories number 14. Aita for refusing to go to my sister's wedding because of her rules. Advice needed. I, 26F, have been having a hard time deciding if I'm overreacting about this, so I wanted some outside perspective. I'm autistic and sometimes don't always catch when people are being sarcastic or saying things that mean something other than what they sound like. So, my sister, 30F, is getting married in 2 months. She's very excited, and honestly, I was excited for her too until recently. I've been with my girlfriend, Layla, 33F, for almost 2 years now. She's amazing. She's a contracts attorney, super smart, and really kind. She's also butch and very masculine presenting. She's third-generation Iranian American, and she has the most beautiful custom-tailored suit ready for the wedding that matches the dress code perfectly. It's navy blue and she looks so nice in it. Here's where the issue starts. My sister has told me Layla can't wear her suit to the wedding. She said the dress code requires women to wear dresses. I asked why, because it feels weird and arbitrary, and she just said it's her wedding, her rules. I tried to explain that Layla isn't comfortable in dresses and hasn't worn one since she was a kid, asking if she could make an exception so Layla would feel comfortable, but my sister just kept repeating that it's her day and we should respect her wishes. I told her it feels unfair and like she was trying to single Layla out, but she said it's not just about Layla, it's about the vibe she wants for her wedding. When I asked what she meant by that, she said something about wanting everyone to look cohesive for photos and not wanting to confuse people. I don't really get how Layla wearing a suit would confuse anyone. She always wears suits and pants. My sister has always been a little weird about Layla. When I first introduced Layla to my family, my sister said, "Oh, I wasn't expecting her to look this mature." Layla does look older than me, but I didn't think it was a big deal. She also made a weird comment about how Layla must be doing very well for herself because of how nice her car is. And when I mentioned Layla's family is from Iran, my sister said, "Oh, that's interesting." But it made Layla look upset. At first, I thought I was reading too much into things, but then my sister started referring to Layla as my friend when talking to other people about the wedding. I corrected her every time, but she'd just laugh and say, "Oh, you know what I mean." And now, with this dress code thing, it feels like there's a pattern. I talked to Layla about it, and she said she'd be fine skipping the wedding if it's going to be like this. She doesn't want to cause drama, and honestly, I don't want to go if it means having to fight my sister on this the whole time. I told my sister I'm not coming if Layla isn't welcome as herself, and now she's saying I'm being dramatic and ruining her big day over something silly. My parents are saying I should just go and keep the peace because it's my sister's wedding and she's only going to get married once, hopefully. But I feel like I'd be betraying Layla and myself if I went along with these rules. It feels like she's trying to exclude the woman I love. I'm struggling so hard and don't understand why she wants to exclude Layla. I feel like I'll let my family down if I don't go, but my sister is excluding the person I love most and I want Layla to know I don't support my sister being mean. Aita for saying I won't go. Stories number 15. I'm worried my son isn't mine because of a threesome. Basically about 7 years ago, my partner, F25, and I, M24, were exploring. We had decided that we would open the relationship to a close friend and we started having threesomes, started out pretty normal and we also started more into cuckolding if anything. Some medical things ended up coming up and we kinda just stopped but she fell pregnant to me, I think it was to me, around this time. When she got tested she was around 10 weeks pregnant, it didn't really dawn on me until earlier this year. At this point I'm just concerned really that the child isn't mine, I've raised him for his whole life and I'm just super worried that I'm not the kid's dad. I would love to get a DNA test done but the idea that he's not mine would absolutely destroy me. Edit. I've decided ultimately to talk to my wife about all my concerns and I think I don't really have much choice other than to do the testing for my son who deserves to know everything about himself medically. I'll just let this post go at this point. Edit 2. Sat down with my wife and discussed my concerns. She's pretty much willing to go about this anyway that I want to. She believes that he's my son but is more than happy to do a test just to really make sure. So the next update will be after the test which they say will get back to me in 5 days after I receive it, so I'm expecting about a week and a little. Thank you all for the advice. I will be seeking therapy just to prepare myself for the worst I guess. I'll see you all on an updated post if there's any news worth really talking about. Stories number 16. Why doesn't anyone want me? Hi, I'm pretty new to Reddit and wanted to get this off my chest. Somehow no one really wants to be with me. I'm M/16 and have never had a relationship or even close contact with another, female, person. And no, I'm not gay. I'm always very helpful and nice, and I don't look like shit and take care of my appearance. Somehow I even manage to make people laugh quite well, especially girls, without making jokes about myself. Almost all my friends make fun of me because I'm still a virgin. I'm only 16 but, as I said, I haven't even had a relationship. I just don't know what to do. I don't have the necessary acquaintance with the matches for stories like Tinder etc. And it's not like I'm on a compulsion to ask any questions. Quite the opposite, because I don't have the courage and I know that she would reject me anyway. For example, our class went to an amusement park a few days ago. It was raining heavily and a girl who I think is quite nice, not in love or anything, was shivering badly. I offered her my jacket as I still had something on underneath, t-shirt. She was only wearing a very thin jumper. Despite this, she refused to take it. I don't know if she doesn't like me or if she thinks I'm disgusting, but I actually get on quite well with her. I've tried to ignore the couples around me and concentrate on school, but I just can't shake this constant feeling of loneliness. Comments. Friends make fun of me. Change your friends. Update after 1 year. Please ignore my name. I would have made a post on this subreddit about a year ago that had a title similar to, "Why doesn't anyone want me?" Admittedly, that title feels very embarrassing to me today because it looks like I've evolved. Yay. The content of the post was mainly self-humiliation, because as a 16-year-old at the time I didn't have a girlfriend and was in a grotty circle of friends who constantly put me down. But a lot has changed over time, so I'm here to share a little update. I came across my old Reddit account by accident and felt like I needed to straighten something out. I've been dating a girl for 7 months, who I love with all my heart. Just as most members of the community advised me under the other post, it came about quite by accident. I'm 17 now, about to turn 18 and I think about her a lot. Every time I see her it feels like the first time I see her in love. I really think, and hope, that the relationship will last longer because she is so incredibly caring, understanding and cute. I always try to do my best. She really appreciates that and loves me with all her heart too. I'll be honest about the virginity thing. We're both still virgins, but in the last few months the kissing and making out has become a lot more intense. Also, I'm not as focused on not being a virgin anymore. I just want to have a good time with her. I feel really fulfilled, now that I've also changed my circle of friends, I don't really have anything to drag me down. We often play D&D together and get on really well, even though I've only known everyone since the beginning of EF. Finally, I want to thank everyone who gave me advice about a year ago. I realize that a 16-year-old who doesn't whine about a girlfriend isn't exactly special or rare. That's why I have to say a big thank you to everyone who has dealt with me despite this. Many thanks to you all. Stories number 17. Aita for leaving my dad's birthday dinner after overhearing my sister's comment about my miscarriage. A few months ago me, 28F, and my sister, Eva, 33F, realized that we were both pregnant. I'd say she was about 6 weeks further than I was. She's been struggling with infertility, so we were all happy for her. I have an older son, 2M, with my husband, 32M. Sadly, a couple weeks ago I lost my baby. We told my family. They were all supportive, but I did sort of pull away from them. They would have tried to avoid discussing Eva's baby around me, but I didn't want to overshadow her, especially since she's wanted this for a long time. I also didn't want to be reminded of my own loss whenever I saw her. So I haven't been to my parents' place for Sunday dinner since or really spent time with Eva, which we had been doing a lot before. I replied vaguely to any messages about my absence. Wasn't the best communication from me. Yesterday my parents were hosting family dinner for my dad's birthday. I've been thinking about going because I missed my family, and while of course the pain of losing my child has not faded, I'm at a point where I can at least put it a little to the side to be there for my sister and my new niece, when she is born. So I let my family know that we would be coming. However, we had to get a gift for my dad and then my son had a bit of a tantrum, so we got to my parents' place about an hour late. I wished my dad and then went to the kitchen, where my mom, Eva, and my SILs were. But before I went in, I heard them say my name so I stopped. My mom was saying something like, well I guess, OP's not coming, and Eva said, what did you expect? She probably changed her mind and is just staying home again. Honestly, I'm sorry for her, but you would think she was the first woman to ever lose a kid. And it's not even her first kid. They then kept talking about other things, but I just wanted to leave. I went and got my husband, who was with my BAL, dad, and brothers in the living room. I told my dad I was really sorry but we needed to go. They all protested, but my husband could see how upset I was so he didn't. We got my son and left. When we got home, I just kind of cried for a while. My husband asked me what happened and I told him. He was angry that she said that, but thought we shouldn't have abruptly left because my dad had been looking forward to seeing us, and my son missed his cousins. After this, I was feeling conflicted. Later my brother texted me saying my dad had been really upset about us leaving and brought it up at dinner, which caused a whole fight because Mom and Eva realized that I must have heard them talking, and my dad was mad about it. My brother said that it was pretty bad and he wished I had just stayed so none of it would have happened. Obviously Eva didn't mean for me to hear that, they were all just frustrated that I'd been AWOL for so long. Now I feel bad, because I didn't mean to ruin dinner. Obviously what Eva said was hurtful, but I can see how my actions might have led to her saying something out of anger, and I could have talked to her about it later instead of just leaving. ETA for additional context. My family is the type to just drop by at each other's places and see one another multiple times throughout the week besides just Sunday dinner. Lately I've been kind of fielding off any requests for people to visit. I just want to emphasize how close my family is and how abnormal it is for me to not be seeing them regularly even for a little bit. I haven't been ghosting them, but I just text them saying I'm not feeling up to it for dinner and kind of leave it there. My sister and my mom have always been closer to each other, as have me and my dad. Additionally, my brothers are closer to her since they're all closer in age. I mentioned this in a comment, but we didn't text anyone saying we were going to be late since my family is usually pretty lax about time. Me and my husband usually show up early though, so it's unusual for us to be late and might have been why they thought we weren't coming. Also my son was continuing to be a handful all the way there, so that kept us busy and we kind of didn't think about notifying anyone. I've started looking into grief counseling, now that I feel like I can at least talk about it. As far as she's told us, my sister hasn't had a miscarriage before, she just had trouble getting pregnant to begin with. From what my brother told me, my sister and mom didn't admit to saying anything, they just kind of looked at each other once my dad mentioned me leaving, and he noticed and asked about it. Then one of my SILs who was also in the kitchen, my other brother's wife, mentioned what they said and my dad got mad. My other brother was also apparently angry with them and it just turned into my mom and sister trying to defend themselves, my dad and other brother yelling, and my brother, who texted me, trying to stay out of it. Best comments. Commenter 1. Grief has no time limit. Recovery from a miscarriage sucks because hormones, pain, and suffering emotionally. The fact that your family thinks you needed to seemingly suck it up and get over it is ridiculous. So no, you weren't wrong from taking time in dealing with your loss. Sounds like that they are more focused on your sister finally getting pregnant and they want you to do the same. It's like, how dare you make your miscarriage about yourself, don't you know your sister's pregnant? So your sister who has struggled with infertility finally gets pregnant and decides that a miscarriage is NBD because it happens all the time and you already have a kid? Your brother is upset because the family fight wouldn't have happened if you just sucked it up and stayed. No consequence for your mom and sister. I'm sorry but hell no. NTA. Ask your sister if she remembers not being able to get pregnant and ask her to imagine what she would have done if she overheard you saying, she probably is staying home again. You know she isn't the first woman to suffer infertility. She can always adopt if she wants a kid so bad. Yeah, your sister likely dreaded being around pregnant women and babies because of her struggles, even if she wasn't vocal about it, but now that she is pregnant and now the only pregnant sister, she thinks she can look down and judge you. Imagine if it was reversed. I bet your family would be having her over for dinner and asking you to stay home because you were pregnant and it was too hard for her. I'm sorry, but she is a selfish jerk and I wouldn't accept any apology she gives, if she does. Remember, she isn't sorry because she was wrong for what she said, she is sorry she got caught saying it. And your family is wrong for blaming you for being rightfully upset because your sister faced the consequence of voicing her thoughts out loud. Commenter 2. Your closest people should support you, not talk behind your back when you are not there. People grieve differently, they should have been happy that you are at the stage you are ready to socialize. NTA for me, just shitty situation for your dad as he had no part in this and it was his birthday. Give him a call, meet up just with him and have an honest talk. Don't ghost him, and the rest of the people who didn't participate in the stupid talking. Mother and sister need to think about their stupid gossip talk. Regardless if it was your first child or not. Update. Hi everyone, I want to thank you all for the support and feedback on my last post. This update is mostly about a few different conversations that I had. I took your suggestions and called my dad, apologizing for leaving early. He completely understood. We talked a bit and he asked if we could go out to lunch this week because he missed seeing me, so we made plans. Then, I talked to my husband and told him that I didn't think I could have stayed and still thought leaving was the best thing for us. He apologized for invalidating my feelings and said he would have liked for us to spend time with family but not at the cost of my mental well-being. He offered to call my brother, not the one who texted me, to set up a playdate for our son with his kids so my son could see some of his cousins, which I appreciated. Later, my mom called, I guess my dad told her we talked, and she apologized for taking so long to call, saying she felt ashamed and didn't know how to talk to me. She said she wouldn't have let Eva say that if they'd known I was there and that she didn't mean it. Eva has been hormonal and frustrated, and my mom thought calling her out at that point would have just made things worse. She felt terrible for hurting my feelings. I thanked her for the apology but told her I needed more time before meeting her. After this, Eva texted me, and I wanted to hear her out, so I called. She apologized a lot and emphasized that she didn't mean it and regretted saying it, attributing it to the same thing my mom had. Apparently she and Bil also had a big fight about it when they got home, which delayed her talking to me. We had a long conversation, in which she confessed that she had a few early miscarriages before they even told us she was pregnant. But she felt she had to keep smiling through it, which made her slightly resent how I was handling my situation. I told her I was hurting and keeping my distance so she could enjoy her pregnancy. She felt bad for misunderstanding and thinking I was shutting everyone out. I assured her that this wasn't the case, I hadn't let anyone in, and with her being pregnant, it was tough for me. I wished her luck but told her I hoped she could understand why I didn't think I could be there with her. She was sad but agreed. We talked more, and by the end, things were better. I texted my family group chat with a long message about how I was feeling and why I would be taking space from meetups, because I feel I need it after this. While the apologies eased my mind and I can see myself forgiving them in the future, I am still hurting, and I think right now, I need to spend time with my husband and son and handle my grief with a professional. Thank you all again for reading this, and I hope this answers your questions about what happened next. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Comments. Commenter 1. I'm glad you're taking time to heal, and that your family is supporting you in this. Commenter 2. What stood out in your mom's apology was that she said she wouldn't have let her say it if she knew you were there. That means that they be talking about you behind your back and thinks it's okay for your sister to say those things. Continue to take your step back and heal and fuck them. Commenter 3. Yes, no one should be able to express themselves or their frustrations about anyone else ever. Especially when they are already emotional or going through things themselves and may say things they don't actually mean. Opt should apologize for talking about her family behind their backs. Commenter 4. But saying, I wouldn't have let her say something extremely insensitive and offensive if I knew you were around to hear it, absolutely sounds like, I'd let her say it as long as I knew you weren't around to hear it so that there's no backlash to her hurtful words. Mom essentially just said, sorry you heard your sister being mean and insensitive toward you, not, sorry your sister said something cruel about you, and it makes it seem like she'd let her talk shit about OP without defending her daughter as long as OP isn't in earshot. Pregnant or not, what the sister said was abhorrent and the mom's apology was only for OP hearing it, not about it being said in the first place. Stories number 18. My husband, M31, is divorcing me, F28, 4 weeks before our baby is born. A few days ago, my husband decided he wants a divorce. I'm 36 weeks pregnant. We had everything planned and ready to bring our baby home, crib set up, clothes washed, and a hospital bag packed. But now, I'm staring at a future that feels completely shattered, and I don't know how to put the pieces back together. Our relationship hasn't been perfect. We've been through a lot, especially with his struggles with alcoholism. He ended up in the hospital earlier this year, and since January 2024, we've both been sober. I thought this could be a turning point for us, but the problems didn't end with the drinking. He has always been critical and harsh toward me, often belittling me and calling me names. When I got pregnant unexpectedly in June, I felt torn. I wasn't sure I was ready, but he was thrilled. We had talked about wanting kids someday, so I decided to keep the pregnancy. I wanted to believe this baby could bring us closer. Instead, things got worse. He's punched holes in walls, taken the car keys away from me when we've argued, and called me names like lazy because I've been sick and exhausted during the pregnancy. I've tried to stand up for myself more, but whenever I do, he accuses me of calling him a piece of shit. I've never said those words. I've only tried to explain how his behavior hurts me. We went to couples counseling, and I've been in therapy on my own, trying to work through everything. But he says I can't let go of the past and that my feelings about his actions are affecting his mental health. His solution? Divorce. He told me he wants a divorce because I can't move on from the things he's done. But those things haven't stopped happening. The final blow came when he told me he plans to take most of the furniture and baby items we bought together. I'm left with nothing. To make matters worse, I'm financially trapped. When we got married, he convinced me to quit my job because, according to him, it didn't pay enough to justify working full-time. I gave my car to my brother because we only needed one car, and he works from home. Now, I have no income, no assets, and only $200 to my name. The house we live in belongs to my parents, so thankfully I won't be homeless. But I can't afford a lawyer or even basic bills. He's already threatening custody arrangements, saying if I'm cordial, he'll agree to 50-50 custody. But if I'm not, he'll fight for full custody. He's also been weaponizing my mental health against me. In my first trimester, when I was struggling emotionally, he told me I needed to go on antidepressants or he'd tell my OB that I was mentally unstable. Now, he won't even talk to me. He locks himself in his office all day and tells me I'm violating his boundaries if I try to approach him. He says I'm insane and accuses me of being unreasonable. At this point, I don't even want him at the birth of our child. I've been thinking about putting my last name on the baby's birth certificate instead of his. I feel like he doesn't deserve that connection to our child, especially since I'm the one who's going to be raising this baby while he tries to take everything away from me. But I'm terrified. How does 50-50 custody of a newborn even work? I plan to breastfeed, but now I'll have to find a job immediately after giving birth, even though I've been unemployed for 2 years. Meanwhile, he has 6 weeks of company leave, which he'll probably use to paint himself as the perfect parent. I haven't told my family yet because I don't know how they'll react. They've always been supportive, but this situation is so overwhelming that I don't even know where to start. I don't have any friends to confide in either. I feel completely alone. I don't know what to do next. How do I fight for custody when I can't even afford a lawyer? How do I protect my baby when he's already trying to manipulate the situation in his favor? If anyone has been in a similar situation or has advice, would be so grateful. Right now, it feels like the ground has been ripped out from under me, and I'm just free-falling into the unknown. Stories number 19. My boyfriend and his mother have an incestuous relationship. My boyfriend, 23M, and I, 22F, have been dating for 6 months now. We were friends for 3 years before dating. I am also pregnant. He has been an absolutely amazing boyfriend, but I am noticing weird things with his mother that are really creeping me out and making me question this relationship and this pregnancy. I have been pretty much living with my boyfriend, under his mother's roof, for about 4 months now. I sleep here every single night. She is a single mother and in her 60s. My boyfriend's dad is remarried, and he has told me that since the divorce his mom has been depressed and never been quite the same. They divorced when he was quite young, maybe around 7 years old. She still cries to this day about the divorce and infidelity as well as his father remarrying, and I don't think she has ever truly gotten over him. She does not date and hasn't since the divorce. My boyfriend had told me multiple times in arguments with his mother she'll constantly compare him to his father, and say things like, "You're just like your father, you don't care about me." Also want to note that my boyfriend looks exactly like his father. I noticed pretty early on that it seems like she takes out her feelings about her ex-husband on my boyfriend. When we first started dating, he would say that his mother is jealous that she's not spending as much time with him anymore, and she's been like that with all of his exes. I noticed she doesn't make much of an effort to talk to me, she is a bit awkward and when she is home she pretty much just stays locked in her room. He says she likes me, and she is always kind when she talks to me, but for some reason my intuition is strongly telling me otherwise. There have been multiple times where we pick up food and he asks her if she wants anything and she says no. When we come back with food she'll send him texts or say to him personally that we only care about ourselves and not her. I noticed these red flags early on, but brushed it off. Here is where things get really weird and twisted. I don't want to believe this is what's going on and I feel crazy for even having these thoughts, but it's hard to find another explanation about things that I have heard. One Saturday morning, everything was going as normal. My boyfriend and I woke up together, did our morning routines and decided to play a couple games on the PS5 together as we normally do on weekends. I was feeling tired as I am pregnant and the hormones have been making me super exhausted, so after a couple of games I decided to take a little nap. He turned off the PS5 and put a YouTube video on the TV kind of loud. He said he would make me breakfast while I napped, so I dozed off as he left the room. It sounded like he went straight to his mother's room and shut the door. Her door is creaky and I can hear every time it opens as it is right next to his room. He often goes into his mother's room and talks to her for a while, so I paid this no mind and continued to rest. I am a very heavy sleeper, by the way. Not sure how much time passed, but I woke up to the sound of banging on the wall, very loud. I then heard the door open and him say, "Oh so you," and I didn't hear the rest, but it almost sounded like, "Oh so you wanna be bad huh?" or something along those lines, and the loud banging continued, now sounding like it was in the hallway right outside the door. I heard mumbling that literally sounded like the way he talks to me when we have sex. I sat up in bed confused, and listened for a couple more minutes. I could have sworn I heard her like gasp or something. At this point I was getting freaked out because it literally sounded like sex noises. I got up and sat in front of the TV which is next to the door and put it on mute. Right after I did that the banging stopped, almost as if they heard me awake and stopped doing whatever they were doing. I then heard shuffling and his mother say, "Lie," and he said, "Yes ma'am." I heard him go downstairs for a few minutes, then he came back into the room with a bowl of cereal. Mind you, usually when he makes me breakfast it's pancakes, bacon, eggs and hash browns. I straight up asked him what was that noise. He looked super nervous and then said, "I was arguing with my mom." I asked about what and he was stuttering nonsense and said he was arguing about a Christmas present. I thought this made so sense. I asked him if the argument got physical because I was hearing loud noises and he said no. I was pressing him, asking him what that could have been, was he moving furniture or something? It was very loud. He began pacing around the room nervously and said quietly, "I am filled with regret." After like an hour of pressing him about it and him telling me it was just an argument, he didn't know what noise I was talking about, etc. I dropped it because I literally thought I was going insane. I know what it sounded like, but I didn't want to believe that something so twisted was going on, and the fact that they were doing it while I am in the next room, sleeping and pregnant. I was literally uncontrollably shaking, extremely disturbed at what I just heard. It was clear as day what it was, but I genuinely thought I was maybe losing it. Later that night I brought it up again and implied I think something was going on, or maybe the argument got physical and he shouldn't be afraid to tell me. He then was like, "Want me to ask my mom if we were hitting each other?" He then goes to his mom's room and asks her if anything went on and was telling her how I think they got into a physical fight. He comes back to me and tells me his mother said that it's just pregnancy hormones, and I'm overthinking, and then she proceeded to text him, "We don't live like that," which he showed me. I took a day to think about it and came to the conclusion that I am not crazy, I know what I heard. I started thinking back on if I ever heard weird things or felt weird vibes concerning his mother, and it turns out there were a couple things I overheard in the past that made me look at them sideways. Some examples. I heard him walking up the stairs behind her and say, "I can still feel around," and she laughed. I once heard the sound of clapping coming from her room when he was in there, talking. Heard them in the kitchen semi-arguing and him saying to her, "I'm trying my best, how can I be better for you?" as if they're in a relationship or something. He once told me that as a child the doctor thought his mother was molesting him because he saw her hair wrapped around my boyfriend's penis. Now that I think I think I have heard banging or weird noises before when they are talking for long periods of time, whether it be in her room or downstairs in the living room and kitchen. All day every day his mother is constantly texting him, bothering him about coming home, seeing what he's doing, etc. One day he said he was going to make me breakfast a separate time from the one mentioned above, and I fell back asleep. His mom was also home in her room. I woke up to him coming back in the room freshly showered with only a towel around his waist with no breakfast for me. This is unusual because usually when he says he is going to make me breakfast, he goes to make it right away and wakes me up with it. Also, he never showers at this time of day. After hearing the weird stuff I have now heard, it makes me wonder if he was in his mother's room. I once heard his mother go downstairs while he was in the kitchen and he thought I was sleeping. I then heard him saying, "Come on mom," and her laughing and walking away. He kept calling her to come back and she goes, "Not tonight baby." Could he have been asking her for sex? It has now been a couple of weeks since the incident where I heard the loud banging. It has been running through my mind every single day. His mother already gave me uncomfortable and off-putting vibes since the beginning, but now I feel very paranoid and creeped out about her and their relationship. I have since pressed him about it again, and pretty much told him what I heard sounded very weird and like something sexual was going on. We argued about it for like 2 days straight. He insists that him and his mother do not have a weird relationship, and him and his mother have no idea what loud noises I was hearing. How can they have possibly not heard something so loud, especially when the noises were coming from where I heard both of their voices? He has tried to explain it away in every possible way but nothing makes sense. He said it could have been the dog, neighbors, or footsteps, but I've been living here for 4 months now and know what all of those things sound like. This was absolutely none of those things. I wish I had opened the door to get physical proof, because now it just feels like I am being lied to. I have been doubting myself thinking could this actually be possible, but when I think back to what I heard it was so clear. I am slowly putting the pieces together and I don't know what to do. Today, I feel like I have reached my breaking point. I don't know if I'm being paranoid now, but something that happened today has made me overthink this situation even more. We were hanging out as normal. I noticed him and his mother texting back and forth a bunch. He then went downstairs to make me soup as I was feeling nauseous. I thought I heard her door quietly open and close, which is weird because she usually swings it open loudly and I hear the creak. She also has super loud footsteps but I didn't hear her going downstairs, so I thought I was tripping maybe. Then I heard banging coming from downstairs, which I figured was just my boyfriend cleaning and making food. The soup only takes 5 minutes to make, it is a packaged soup. He was downstairs for about 30 to 40 minutes. He comes back upstairs with my soup and then I hear his mother loudly coming upstairs. So I was right, I did hear her door open as if she was sneaking downstairs so that I would not hear. I asked him what took so long and he nervously was saying a bunch of things that didn't make sense. He made no mention of his mother being downstairs. I then asked if he was talking to someone and he nervously said, "Yeah, my mom." Then he accused me of being paranoid about his mom and that I think I'm hearing things. I made no mention of his mom or hearing things even though I did hear banging. So does this mean he knows he was being loud and I could have heard it? It seemed like projection and him feeling guilty about something he's doing with his mother. At this point I do not trust him being around his mother and I am disturbed and drained. I am horrified and don't know what to do. I know this all sounds so crazy and outlandish, but my gut is telling me something is wrong. There's no mistaking what I heard that day. Am I being crazy or should I trust my gut and what I know I heard? I feel like the signs and things I have heard now are so blatantly obvious and I cannot ignore it anymore or try to explain it away. It genuinely seems as if something incestuous is going on with my boyfriend and his mother. I have always said I do not want to be a single mother or raise a child in a broken home, and now I am 3 months pregnant. I am also in fear that if he does have a sick and twisted relationship with his mother, who's to say he wouldn't try to do the same with our child? I am seriously considering terminating the pregnancy and breaking up with him. What should I do, and does it sound like I am overreacting or should I trust my gut? Stories number 20. I only work 2 hours a day and I get paid 6 figures for doing practically nothing. I might be hated for this, but I did go to school for many years and paid my dues. Without going into too much specifics details, I go to work at around 8:30 in the morning and do 2 hours of work, and then I pretty much either go do errands, sleep in the car or watch a movie and leave by 3 p.m. Since my job just requires at least one person doing the work, the other guy that is hired, work partner. He comes in late and takes over from 12 to 3 p.m. The job is super easy because we went to school for it and our boss is too busy to check on us. As long as the work is done we are good. To be fair, we manage our job pretty well, and we never get any complaints. We pretty much pop in the office here and there just to look busy and then back to our assigned area. I have so much time in hand. I also got a part-time job doing the same thing and going in one night out of the week. My day job is a full-time gig that pays $75,000 plus $18K in benefits. Night part-time job I make $38,000. My wife works part-time as a nurse and makes $55,000 a year. Update, since a lot of people asked, it's a teaching job. We even set up a cot in one of the back rooms that only we have the keys to. Stories number 21. Aita 4, not acknowledging my GF's equity in the house we live in. I, 38M, met my GF, 32F, 7 years ago when I was looking for a house. At the time, she was working for a guy who did custom carpentry and we were introduced by a mutual acquaintance who I told I wanted to redo the kitchen in the house. She and her boss did some work for my kitchen renovation. We remained in touch and about 5 years ago, we started dating. About 3 years ago, she moved in. We maintain separate finances at my insistence. I have 2 kids. I pay 100% of the mortgage, homeowner's insurance, HOA fees, and any maintenance costs that arise. We split groceries and utilities historically. About 4 months ago, my GF lost her job. She has been looking, but has not found anything. She has been paying most of her expenses using savings. About 2 months ago, I was reached out to by a realtor. There is an older couple originally from the area looking to move back. They looked at another house that was for sale in the neighborhood, but they saw my house on the outside and really loved it. He said they would be willing to pay a premium. I let them do a walkthrough and they made me an insane offer. After talking to my GF, I accepted. We are now looking for a new place. My GF has approached me about collecting on her equity when the sale is finalized. I thought she was joking, but she was serious. I maintain she does not have equity in the house. She thinks she does because of what work she did in the kitchen during the renovation and helping maintain the house. She was paid for her renovation work, it was before we were dating. The maintenance she does on the house is cleaning and occasionally unclogging a toilet and or changing the smoke alarm batteries. I do not think that is grounds for equity in the house. Aita. Stories number 22. Actual final update, Aita for telling my girlfriend I can't trust her anymore when it comes to her wanting a baby. Other posts are on my profile. It's been over a month since this happened and things thankfully haven't been crazy. I was in shock pretty bad during this and it started to hit me, so I've been seeing a therapist about it. As for my ex, her mom has been updating me on her, mostly because how concerned I was for her. I was honestly thinking about blocking her entire family because I wanted to separate myself totally from all and never think about her again, but I decided to keep her mom on my phone for updates at the time. She was in a psych ward for 2 weeks. While I haven't been told a specific diagnosis, she was apparently in psychosis. Her mom has told me she is taking medication and is doing better. The fucked up thing is that her mom has been recently trying to get me to get back together with her, saying her daughter will be a lot happier if I go back to her. I straight up blocked her. I do not want to experience that again, even if she is getting counseling and is on medication. Fuck no, I don't know why her mom is doing that. Maybe my ex is giving her a hard time over this. I don't know, other than that it's been calm. I've came to the realization that I'm a lot happier without her in my life and I want it to stay that way. I'm going to stay single for the time being and just stick with myself. Thanks for all of the advice on my other posts. Stories number 23. Aita for not personally informing my dad every time we run out of milk. Not the a-hole. Hello Reddit. I, 21, am currently living with my parents at home to save on room and board for college. I am a full-time student, work 20+ hours a week, and consistently contribute to household chores and tasks. As a family we drink a lot of milk and go through it pretty fast. My mom, 53F, has always been the one to get the groceries, but since I got my license in high school, I have as well. It is rare for my dad to get family groceries. My dad, 50M, is very picky about food, and for as long as I can remember, gets very upset if he doesn't have the right drink with his food. If we have pizza, he needs Coca-Cola, if we have any dessert, he needs milk. Growing up, when we ran out of one of these drinks, it would upset him. Sometimes he would slam the front door as he left, sometimes he would leave without a word. My mom was always hurt by it, and it always confused me. Why couldn't he just drink water? Well, it snowed bad this week, but I was able to dig my car out of the snow and pick up some drink items. I got juice and some milk. Fast forward to yesterday. Mom got sick, but works remote. We ran out of milk as well as other items making breakfast and coffee, so I updated our grocery app. I get out to my car and it won't start. She was running a meeting, so I text to let them know I needed to take her car, which was fine with her. It's 9 o'clock, and my dad is still asleep, he was off work. It's 11:30, I've been enjoying a lovely day at work. My dad hadn't responded to any of the family messages, but I received this text from him. Can you please let me know when you drink the last of the milk so I can plan accordingly for my meals? He hadn't acknowledged my car troubles or that I was at work. He woke up 4 hours after the rest of us on his day off, which is fine. I respond, hello, good morning to you too. I understand that you're frustrated. Mom or I are planning to go to the grocery store after work today. I made it to work safely and am having a nice day, smiley face. hope you enjoy your day off. His response, I'm sorry if that sounded rude. I didn't mean for it to. I would really like your help with that issue. I'm glad you made it safe to work, have a good day. Fair enough. I followed up by sharing the updates I made to our grocery app. But Reddit, this is what I wanted to say to him. Thank you. I'm not sure what the issue is. I was raised to not cry over spilled milk. I am not responsible for helping you plan your meals. When we run out of my favorite drinks, I drink water and go on with my day because they are a luxury, not an essential to survive. That's more than most people have in this world, and I'm grateful. Are you? I always want to give the benefit of the doubt, and be open to the idea that I am missing something. But I feel like there's something wrong with this behavior. So, Reddit, Aita for drinking the last of the milk and not telling my dad immediately, when he is fully capable of buying groceries himself, or drinking water when it's needed. Stories number 24. Aita for telling my lesbian ex-wife that her partner cannot be my son's mom. Advice needed. Hi all, throw away because my friends are not completely aware of this current situation. I, 35M, was married to my ex-wife, 34F, for 7 years. 2 years ago my ex-wife came out as lesbian. This came as a complete shock to me. She and her partner were co-workers who had an affair since she joined the company a year before our divorce. We have a son together, 8M, this came as a complete shock to me. I was heartbroken and devastated. I felt betrayed as I had spent 7 years of my life with this woman and it all felt like a lie now. When I confronted her she told me that she had to live her truth, and that she tried to suppress her identity because she didn't come to terms with it till she met her partner. When I asked whether she loved me she told me that while she loves me it's different than how she loved her new partner. This broke my heart even further. The divorce was quick as she did not want anything from me and we agreed to a 50-50th split of custody, but I decided to go no contact with her and handled the custody transfer process through my sister, 27F, whom I moved in with after the divorce. I sold the house and we mutually agreed that the excess money from the sale will be in a college fund for our son in the future. I could not bear to stay in that house anymore as it kept reminding me of her betrayal. For context, she introduced her partner as her work friend, and I believed her. I had no reason to suspect anything and they had several girls' nights, but I figured that they were probably using these as cover for the affair. For 6 months I was in a depressive state because I didn't know where I went wrong. But this is one of those scenarios that anything I would have done wouldn't have been able to make it better. This made me even more depressed, and the fact that all the vows and little things that she said at our wedding were all just lies trying to keep up a ruse made it even worse. The two people that got me through this state was my sister, whom I am eternally grateful for helping with her nephew and helping me while maintaining her career. The other person that got me through this was my college ex-girlfriend. Around 4 months after the divorce we reconnected at a reunion and she really helped through the worst of it as a friend. Around a year after the divorce, we started officially dating, and I introduced her to my son. During all this time my ex's partner had been having limited interactions with my son. This was not because of me saying anything, but my ex-wife wanted him to adjust to his new reality. My son is in that weird age that he understands what's going on but he doesn't really understand what's actually going on. If you know you know. He understands that mommy has a girlfriend and that me and his mom are not together anymore. I'm pretty happy considering we didn't really talk to him about the LGBTQ+ stuff because we had decided that we can talk about this when he's a bit older, but I'm happy that he's come to terms with the divorce. Around 8 months ago, my ex said that she was officially moving in with her partner and that she was engaged. At this point I still was on no contact except brief conversations that concerned our son. She invited me to the wedding but I declined. They were planning to have a destination wedding in Spain where her girlfriend lives. She wanted to take our son to the wedding and he would have to miss school for a week since she wanted him to meet her girlfriend's family as well. I told her that missing school for a week does not make sense and that she should plan her wedding when he has vacation since she doesn't have a fixed date yet. She argued that most likely they won't have a date that will align with his vacations and that they are getting married as soon as possible. I relented and agreed since I didn't want to interact with her anymore and it was well within her rights to have her son at her wedding. The problem started when my son came back after the wedding. He was supposed to stay with me since we have a flexible week-in week-out custody arrangement. She wanted to take my son on her honeymoon so that he has a chance to bond with his new stepmother. I told her that she had already had 2 weeks with him since she had custody for a week before the wedding and that I wanted to spend some father-son time with him. I told her that it well within my rights and that she should go spend some time with her new wife. She argued that since our son's interactions with her partner were limited because of her busy schedule, that this was a great opportunity for them to bond. I told her that she had 2 weeks for him to get to know her partner. She said that they were busy with the wedding and did not have time. I told her that I had taken vacation days for us to go to a motorcycle expo and build a Lego set, two things that my son absolutely loves. She kept arguing and I finally told her that the custody was placed for a reason and that's the one thing I will not negotiate on. She got angry at me and left. Me and my son had a great experience, I even got him one of those kid-sized motorcycles since he liked them so much. Over the next few weeks we returned back to our week in/week out routine. One day I find that my ex posted a photo shoot of them and my son under a caption of #lesbianmomies. I thought that it was post and it probably meant nothing but it was showing them as a family and something about that did not sit right with me. When I got my son for the week I asked him that if his mom was saying anything to him. He relented a bit but told me that his mother had been trying to convince him to call her partner his mom. This was a shock to me as I never expected my ex to do this. Then again I've been wrong about these things before. I asked him if that's something he wanted and he told me that he is much more comfortable calling her by her first name and that he feels weird with calling two people mom. I told him it's okay and that he shouldn't feel pressured to do anything. I called my ex and asked her to meet up because this was serious and I wanted to discuss this. I confronted her about this and she told me that since her and her partner were married, it's only natural for our son to have two moms now. I told her that it's not okay for her to try and convince him into calling her partner his mom because she is not his mother, she doesn't have an active parenting role in his life and that any major parenting decisions require the two of us. She tried making an argument that since me and my girlfriend were becoming serious now and that eventually I might want him to start calling her mom. I told her even if we become serious I won't try and convince our son to start calling her mom, because he already has two parents and he doesn't need more. Then she dropped the bombshell on me. She told me that she and her partner were hoping that eventually down the line they can file for adoption. I'll still be able to visit and see my son but she wanted her and her wife to have legal guardianship because they wanted to build a new family with them. I told her absolutely not and that our partners have no say in our kids' lives. She accused me of being homophobic for denying her the right to a complete family and I told her while her life is her choice our son's life has to be a thing that we decide ourselves. I ended the conversation there and told my son to tell me if her mother tries to force him to do anything that he doesn't want to do. 3 weeks later I found out that my ex had enrolled him in Spanish lessons that he told me that he hated doing. For context my ex is Latin and her partner is Spanish so they are more comfortable talking to each other in Spanish. We made the decision to raise our son in English because it made sense at the time as she speaks English better than Spanish and I don't speak any Spanish. When I discussed this she told me that she would like her son to connect more to his heritage. I said that I don't have any problem with that but we have tried this several times before when we were married and he had shown zero interest in it. She told me that this time might be different since he will have two Spanish speakers at home. I told her that I am in all favor of bilingualism because two languages are always an advantage especially for kids but if he doesn't want to do it there is no reason to force him to do it, maybe try another language. She then accuses me of denying our son his roots and goes on a tirade of accusing me of denying our son his identity and coming back to me denying her right to a family. My girlfriend usually stays out of these matters but she advised me to contact my lawyer and see what they can actually do. My lawyer told me that even if they send an adoption notice, I can contest it and it would take something exceptional like abandonment etc. for my contest to get rejected. My ex keeps posting our son as a part of her new family and it's honestly started to trigger me. 2 weeks ago I interacted for the first time with my ex's new wife after the divorce. She contacted me and asked to meet up. She told me that my ex had finally started to recover from the social trauma of coming out and building a new life with her and that I am now getting in the way of the happiness. She accused me of being emotionless and uncaring through our divorce and how I guilt-tripped her into agreeing to my demands of 50-50 custody, and how I should just agree to the eventual adoption in a few years because she has always wanted a son and that I will still remain my son's dad and I can still visit him. I told her that I don't care what her emotional state was during the divorce and that my demands were fair even to the most irrational person. I told her that if they want to create this image of perfect family, then they should have another kid that has no connection to me. I feel like all this has started to affect my son more than anything. He is a lot less happier than he was just a few months as we had started to adjust to this new reality. For context since I know this is gonna come up eventually, the emotional trauma of my ex coming out it is basically the fact that her family effectively disowned her after coming out. Her parents don't talk to her anymore, while my son has plenty of interactions with his maternal grandparents when he's with me. Those two combined make significantly more money than I do alone, however my ex-wife makes less money than me but her partner is in a senior position so she has more stability. This is also an argument my ex-wife used when we discussed adoption since they can then send our son to a private school and generally give him a better life. I don't know if this is a factor but the recent elections may have caused this because they are worried that they might not be able to adopt soon, but they don't want to adopt my son now but in a few years so I doubt this to be true. Stories number 25. Aita, I refuse to keep loaning a roommate money for dress clothes for a funeral. I'm 38-year-old physically disabled male currently living in a group home until I can regain my mobility and independence. Over the past year or so I've developed a friendship with another resident who isn't great at managing their money. I'm the type of guy who likes helping people and people go to seeking advice or at least support. Over that time I loaned him about $600. He'd make some payments but often ask for that amount back within a week. I eventually put my foot down and stopped loaning him money. Then one of his 3 daughters was killed, then the second died from an illness. I gave him more money in loans and gifts to help him with these extraordinary times. I probably loaned him about $150 and gave him $100 for travel to see his family and help with a headstone and flowers. A week ago his last remaining daughter's son died of COVID and I gave him another $110 loan for travel and funeral expenses, but he still wants more. I'm on fixed income right now and will probably be for at least the next year and a half. I've basically written this money off in my mind, but I feel I can't just keep throwing money to him. Right now he wants money for dress clothes or says he won't go to his grandson's services. It's tearing his daughter up and it feels like the emotional blackmail he's used against me before when he keeps telling me a true friend would help. My family say I'm in the right cutting him off, but it hurts my heart. I just need people unconnected to the situation to give me their opinion. Thank you all for reading this and your thoughts. Update. Thank you all for your kind words and the reality checks on if these deaths are real. It's funny how those happened after he couldn't manipulate me in other ways. He is cut off. I do have records of what he owes me, but I'll never get it back. I'll just have to think of it as good karma and a lesson, but try not to let it harden my heart, just make me smarter in who I believe. I still want to be the loving caring guy, I am just not so trusting. It's something I've done many times before and helped a lot of people but been burned a lot too. I get told much of what you all told me by friends and family, but I need it from people who don't know me for me to believe it's true and not just something they have to say. Thank you all again. Stories number 26. My 25F best friend confessed to my 26M boyfriend of 3 years, and now he's confused. I'm 24F. I thought my best friend and I were tight, but last week she sat my boyfriend down and said she's been in love with him for years. He told me immediately, which I appreciated, but then he dropped a bombshell. He says he needs space to think about his feelings. What feelings? We've been together for 3 years, and I thought we were solid. My friend and I have known each other since high school, and I never saw this coming. Now she's texting me saying she's sorry but had to be honest about her feelings. I don't know what to do. Do I confront her? Give him the space he's asking for? Or do I just walk away from both of them? I feel so blindsided. Stories number 27. Wibta, if I told my partner his friend can't use our home bathroom anymore. My 26F partner, 30M, has 2 friends and business partners, also 30M, who come to our house a few times a week to work, hold meetings, etc. The office they use is downstairs and has a bathroom, which is also our only common area bathroom. 9 times out of 10, my partner and I are using this bathroom, and it is the only bathroom that other guests use when they come over. Every time that one of these guys comes over, our bathroom smells like a fishy sewer for days afterward. Every single time. We keep recaulking the toilet, but it doesn't even matter because the next time he comes over, it's back. Both of these men are significantly heavier than us, but one of them lived with us for the better part of a year and we never had this issue. Friend number 2 must be doing something extra on the toilet that's causing this, right? My partner feels uncomfortable saying anything to him about it, understandably, but we are both disgusted even standing in our own bathroom. It feels dirty and nauseating and takes days for the smell to fade. Wibta, if I banned him from using our home bathroom? Wibta, if I put a sign up in the bathroom indirectly addressing the issue? This all feels ridiculous for my own home bathroom, but I'm at a loss, lol. ETA, we called the plumber today and they're coming next week to check it out. Also adding, this man does not smell otherwise, so it's not a hygiene thing. We are not aware of any medical issue, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it's not clearly a poop smell or pee smell. It's distinct. We don't think he's wiping out the bathroom every time he comes over. Stories number 28. I had a miscarriage and my teenage brother is becoming a dad. I'm in my early 20s and had an unexpected pregnancy last year that I was really happy with, but it ended in a loss. The dad is a man I've known and loved for years. My best friend, my everything. This loss tore my mental health so far down that it tore me and him apart. I lost my baby, my love, myself. Just 2 months later my 16-year-old brother broke the news. A girl that he has only known for 3 months was pregnant and the baby is healthy. He's becoming a dad, he's the first to make my parents into grandparents. And he's dating the girl. It's not so much jealousy, it's more pain. Why not my baby? Why not my relationship? Me and my, then, partner were so happy before this happened to us. I was so happy. My brother is a child, maybe I wasn't in the picture-perfect setting either for my baby, but I was better off than a teenager. I don't know how I'll ever look at this baby with love or care, and that makes me feel evil. I truly think I'm gonna hate this baby, and I don't even want to hate them. I feel like such a bad person, but I just want my baby. I want to see my baby grow. I want to see the person I love hold our baby. Instead, I'll get to see my brother have a baby with somebody he barely knows, while my whole life and future have been ripped away from me. Stories number 29. Aita for telling my parents I won't pay for their retirement after they paid for my brother's wedding. I, 29M, have always been responsible with money, while my brother, 32M, has not. A few years ago, he got married, and my parents spent nearly all their savings paying for his extravagant wedding. Now they're nearing retirement and have asked me to help support them financially because they don't have enough saved. I told them I wasn't willing to help because they chose to prioritize my brother's wedding over their future. They argued that I don't understand because I'm single and don't have major expenses like a family. I told them their choices aren't my responsibility, and they called me selfish. My brother thinks I'm being cruel and says I'm punishing our parents for favoring him. I feel bad for saying no, but I also don't think it's fair for me to bear the burden of their bad financial decisions. Aita. Stories number 30. I'm a massive savings nerd. Here are the stupidest money mistakes I see people make. 1. Overpaying for car insurance. The average American saves a whopping $410 plus a year. Source. When they switch auto insurance carriers, sometimes significantly more than that. I saved $1,300 this year. The reason? Some carriers offer discount prices to new customers when they switch. Take 30 seconds and go to a third-party comparison site. Coverage.com and auto-savings.com are both fine, to see if you can find cheaper rates. You'll likely save yourself a bunch of money. Some people suggest switching every 6 months, that's a little bit overkill imo. Once a year should be fine. 2. Overpaying when you shop online. Big stores like Amazon know that no one has time to price shop through dozens of sites, so there's often no incentive for them to offer bargain prices. I typically hate browser extensions with a fiery passion, but Capital One shopping has always worked well for me and I'd recommend trying it. When you shop online, on Amazon or elsewhere, it will automatically compare prices for you, and auto-apply coupon codes when possible. 3. Paying for subscriptions you don't use. We've all signed up for free trials and forgotten to cancel them. Stop paying for services you aren't using. Take a minute and get yourself a good cancellation app. I like Rocket Money. It's an app that will put together a list of your subscriptions so you can pick/choose which ones to cancel. They also have a premium service that will cancel them for you, if you'd like. Here's a link, it's free. 4. Dealing with debt on your own. If you've got $10,000 plus in unsecured debt, think credit cards, medical bills, etc., you can ask a debt relief company to come in and negotiate it for you. You typically will save around 23% on average, after their fees. Here's a link to a savings calculator from National Debt Relief's website if you want to see how much you could save. 5. Not having a financial advisor. You know why so many rich people have financial advisors? It isn't because they're better at picking stocks, spoiler alert, they're not. It's because a good financial advisor will help you with all of the bizarro tax implications you never would have thought of. People with financial advisors end up making 3% more/year thanks to better tax planning. If you don't know an advisor personally, use a third-party comparison site to find somebody with good reviews. Wiser Advisor is solid. 6. Using normal, low-interest savings accounts. I'm always shocked at the number of people still using garbage savings accounts that pay 0.5%, or less, a year. There are literally hundreds of banks that will pay you 8x that, usually 10x that rate. Here's a link to a bunch of options. 7. Needing cash, but taking out high-interest loans. So many people take out high-interest payday loans. Please don't do this. If you get into trouble, you can typically get a relatively low-interest HELOC, a home equity line of credit. Essentially, with a HELOC, you're borrowing against the equity you have in your house and use it for whatever you need, much like a credit card. Typically, you'll get lower interest rates and more flexible repayment terms compared to traditional loans. Here's a calculator you can use to see how much little you could borrow. Side note, if you hate debt, you can still get money out of your home's equity by using something like HomeTap, where you more or less sell investors a portion of your equity without a loan. There are tons of other things, obviously, but these are the ones that I see the most. Hope that helps. I think my marriage is falling apart because I tried to be too nice. Hi, Reddit. This is going to be a long one, so I appreciate you sticking with me. I'll do my best to make sense of what's happening because, frankly, I don't know what to do anymore. I, 32M, have been married to my wife, Clara, 30F, for 6 years. We dated for 4 years before getting married, so we've been together for a decade. We met in college, and from the moment I saw her, I knew she was someone special. Clara is beautiful, kind, and one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. She's the type of person who lights up a room without even trying. In the early years of our relationship, everything felt effortless. We shared so many interests, traveling, hiking, and even a mutual love for obscure indie films. We rarely fought, and when we did, it was over small, silly things like what movie to watch or whose turn it was to cook dinner. I thought we were the definition of perfect for each other. But lately, things feel off. It started about 2 years ago, around the time Clara got a big promotion at work. I was ecstatic for her. She'd been working so hard and truly deserved it. The promotion came with a significant pay bump and a lot more responsibilities. She was suddenly managing a team of 15 people and overseeing major projects. Her job became her world, and while I was happy for her, I started noticing changes in her behavior. She became distant. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of her new role. I tried to be supportive, cooking her favorite meals, giving her space when she needed it, and doing most of the household chores to ease her burden. I told myself it was just a phase and that things would go back to normal once she settled into her new position. But the phase never ended. Over time, Clara stopped sharing things with me. She used to tell me everything, what happened at work, her dreams, her worries, her plans for the future. Now, our conversations feel surface level. When I ask how her day was, she just says, "It was fine," or "busy," and leaves it at that. We've also stopped spending quality time together. Our once-weekly date nights have become rare, and when we do go out, it feels like she's not really present. She's always checking her phone or talking about work. I miss the days when we'd laugh until our stomachs hurt or stay up late talking about nothing and everything. I've tried to talk to her about how I feel, but it doesn't seem to help. She always says, "I'm just tired, Alex. Can we talk about this another time?" But that, another time, never comes. And here's the kicker, I've been avoiding pushing too hard because I don't want to seem like I'm not supportive of her career. I want her to succeed and be happy. I want to be the husband who lifts her up, not the one who drags her down. But in trying to be supportive, I think I've lost myself. I work full-time too, but I've taken on almost all the responsibilities at home. I cook, clean, do the laundry, and even manage our finances. I don't mind helping out. Marriage is a partnership, after all, but it's starting to feel one-sided. A few weeks ago, I decided to plan a surprise weekend getaway for us. I thought it might help us reconnect. I booked a cozy cabin in the mountains, arranged for her favorite wine and snacks, and even cleared my schedule so we could have uninterrupted time together. When I told Clara about the trip, she didn't react the way I'd hoped. She looked annoyed and said, "Alex, you know I can't just take time off like that. I have a big deadline coming up." I tried to hide my disappointment and told her we could reschedule, but deep down, it hurt. It felt like she didn't care about us anymore. The breaking point came last week. We were having dinner, and I finally mustered up the courage to tell her how I'd been feeling. I told her I missed her, that I felt like we were growing apart, and that I was scared for our marriage. Her response? She sighed and said, "Alex, you're overthinking things. We're fine. I'm just busy. You need to stop making everything about you." That comment cut me like a knife. I've spent the past 2 years doing everything I can to support her, to make her life easier, and to be the best husband I can be. How could she think I was making this about me? After that conversation, I started wondering if I've been too nice, too accommodating. Maybe I've been so focused on her needs that I've neglected my own. Maybe I've been enabling her to take me for granted. I don't know. I love Clara with all my heart, but I don't know how much longer I can keep living like this. I feel invisible, like a roommate rather than a partner. I miss the way things used to be, and I don't know how to get back there. So, Reddit, I'm turning to you for advice. How do I save my marriage without losing myself in the process? How do I support my wife without feeling like I'm being taken advantage of? And most importantly, how do I make her see that our relationship needs attention before it's too late? I'm open to any suggestions because, right now, I feel like I'm grasping at straws.